Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome back to episode 94 of the Snarp Fangle Podcast. I'm your host, Jake Metzger, your woefully unprepared conspiracy mythbuster. And my co-host this week is the man who's seen the light, as well as the dark. Ladies and gentlemen, David Reed.
Yo.
David, how you doing this fine evening?
You know, I'm here. I was gonna,
No, don't say it.
I was gonna say something, but I don't want to give any people any ideas to run with. So I'm just gonna say that I'm doing well.
Well, I am glad to hear that. And our guest this week, it's a crazy duo that even Harry S. Truman would find their beliefs questionable. First off, we have our G-man of the group, who's got a knack for listening to those aliens invading while they push the bounds of the human mind harder than a cow tipping over a granite embankment. Ladies and gentlemen, Billy Kemp.
Hello.
How you doing, Billy?
Doing okay. I'm glad to be here.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, good to have you here.
Ready
You ready for today?
Throw out some crazy theories.
Let's do it. Let's get into it. And, of course, our other guest is a cross between Gordon Freeman, Graham Hancock, and Ron Paul. And watch out! I forgot to pronounce this word. He's had Pleocene. I Googled it. I can't. Anyway, he's had the Mesopotamia era for breakfast this morning. Ladies and gentlemen, Charles T.
Pleistocene.
Thank you.
Yes.
Charles, how you doing?
I'm doing all right. How are you guys doing today?
Doing all right. Do people call you Chuck, or is that a no-no?
Some people call me Chuck. I don't often talk to them for very long after that.
Do they say you're late for dinner?
Sometimes.
Yes.
My brother likes to yell Chuck right before throwing something at me. So
Oh.
bad. What do they call that? Trauma, I believe.
Anything that happened before the age of 15?
It's
Yes,
trauma.
sir.
Childhood.
Especially in the Anyway, continuing on.
Pleistocene,
era.
which is probably also an incorrect pronunciation. Almost
Pleistocene.
certainly.
Google was about that. So
You know, I have that problem all the time. I try to use words that I've only ever read, and then I have this moment of panic before I
no.
say them.
wow, you're describing exactly what I just went
And
through.
I just hope and pray that nobody else actually knows how to say this word, and they'll just assume that I'm right.
Pleistocene everywhere.
Or if the definition's right, too. If you got the actual right word for what you're trying to say. I do that a lot.
As Billy knows, my father was actually an oral speech major, so mispronunciation was a very big problem in the house I grew up in, and consequently I tend to say things like I would like to order a taco and a burrito. I'm a big fan of quesadillas.
Oh, I love quesadillas. Those are my favorite.
Great. I've just given up entirely to the point
And
where
salsa with a Z.
Salsa
Make
with
it
a
spicy.
Z.
I don't do that one, but I don't think I spent enough time in Texas.
Speaking of which, you know what always makes me laugh is British people pronouncing the word salsa. They pronounce it salser.
So,
Yeah, salsa.
They
What's up with that?
they add an R that is not there.
salsa.
Like the water.
Isn't that about anybody outside of America? Putting in R's that just aren't supposed to be there. You know what I mean? For any and all inquiries, comments, concerns, thoughts, and ideas, and what kind of FBI, CIA agent you are listening to this right now, tell us below in the comments. Or feel free to send them on over to snarpfanglepod@gmail.com, or you can just text Jake, which I'm sure you guys have out there. Anyway, gentlemen, we have gathered together under the Snarp Fangle banner for the Snarp Fangle congregation out there on the YouTubes, on the internets. And we are here to gather and share our own, well, not own, but our own that we're bringing to the table of conspiracy theories. Billy, Charles, David, and myself have gotten a rigmarole of a Fangle to talk with you guys. And so we're going to shut it over to David and why the climate shoulda, woulda, coulda change. So, David, I'm going to pass it over to you. What is your conspiracy theory that you want to introduce to the congregation? Oh, and by the way, when we get to mine, I am very unprepared. I just got it done the last 15 minutes, so I apologize in advance. But I think David's more prepared than me, so I'm going to let him go first.
Yeah, I don't know about that. My research consists of reading an article and remembering something that Alex Jones talked about on the Joe Rogan podcast some number of years ago.
If I understand how it works correctly now in 2025, that is considered excessive research. You're supposed to read the headline
Yes.
and then spout about it for about an hour and a half.
Yeah. What I do usually is I look at the headline, go to the third paragraph, which is where usually you want to be, and then maybe read that. And there you go. So, David, what do you got for us today for the crew and the people out there listening?
All right, so my conspiracy, or not so conspiracy, is the idea that anthropogenic climate change caused by humans, specifically beginning around the Industrial Revolution, is not only 100% real, because usually in the whole climate change debate, it seems like the debate is over, is it happening or is it not happening? Is it happening the way the climate alarmists, the Greta Thunbergs of the world want you to believe it is, or is it happening a different way? That seems to be the debate.
Is that sort of like the difference between the classic argument of global cooling and now the hot topic of global warming?
Yeah.
Is that what you mean? Yeah.
So, but I want to go at it from a different angle. I want to go at it from the idea that not only are the Greta Thunbergs of the world 100% totally correct, they're just wrong about they're just wrong about how we should feel about that.
I'm using DuckDuckGo for the search engine today.
So my conspiracy is that human-caused climate change is real, but is actually has provided and will continue for at least a century to provide a net benefit to humanity.
Interesting.
Would you like to expound a little bit on it?
Yeah, so I was first introduced to this idea, I think, in that aforementioned Joe Rogan episode featuring Alex Jones. And on it, he talked about, what was it? What was, okay, so the conversation was about things like renewable energy versus coal power versus nuclear power, the environmental impact of cars moving from internal combustion engines to electric motors, that sort of thing. And, I think the answer that everyone expected Mr. Jones to give was that, climate change is fake, that we should keep using internal combustion engines. We should use nuclear power and coal power for our energy needs. But his response was actually that he applauded the transition into electric motors, reasoning that the increased stress on the grid would necessitate more power plants being built and renewable energy technology not being able to actually even supply all the energy that we currently consume would inevitably lead to more dirty, polluting coal plants being built, more carbon being released into the atmosphere overall. And he said, I'm 100% in favor of that because essentially we're turning the planet into a greenhouse. You hear about greenhouse gases all the time, and, well, what a greenhouse is for. They're for growing plants better. So the whole idea is more carbon in the atmosphere means the planet is actually acting more like a greenhouse. Higher temperatures, more carbon dioxide. Plants grow better. And so essentially humans inadvertently are essentially terraforming the planet to be greener and produce more food and just be in general more livable and better for humans overall.
So you're talking about that thing that's been happening since the 80s, the greener Earth, as some people call it. Is that what you mean?
Yes.
Yeah, because if I remember the statistics correctly, and I'm going to assume Google does because that is 100% what I'm doing. Since 1982, the Earth has become greener in an area covering over 36 million kilometer squares, which is close to twice the size of the United States.
Whoa.
That's a lot of greener. I could see how that would definitely be
So
positive.
what you're saying is there are greener pastures on the other side of the hill.
No. I think it's these are the greener pastures.
Yeah, exactly. We've seen the greener pastures.
So you're telling me, David, you're Team Carbon is what you're telling me?
I'm Team Carbon, yes.
Team Carbon all the way.
The interesting thing about it is according to the limited research that I did, it seems that the scientific consensus is that human-caused warming will continue to be beneficial to humans until it reaches, I think it was like 3.2 degrees Celsius or something in terms of overall temperature increase. And right now, the models that we have project that limit to be reached at like 2080, if not later.
Well, that can't be right. I definitely read on the internet that it's gone up 2 degrees in the last 30 minutes. Pretty sure that's what I said. I saw it on Facebook. It must be true.
Yeah.
Yeah, the really interesting thing about this is it's not really a conspiracy per se. The information is out there, but it's like people with an agenda don't want to talk about it. And that's all there really is to it. It's not even that this information is necessarily being hid from general view. It's that the powers that be, the people who set climate policies, don't want to talk about this because it kind of shatters the whole.
Well, there's money in climate.
Yeah, exactly.
Complaints. If there's no, it's the classic. It seems to me like it's the classic follow the money, follow the power, right? If they admit that it's not actually an issue, then you lose all the monetary input. I mean, you're talking about billions of dollars in climate change initiatives and tax exemptions and all sorts of things. I mean, look how many windmills exist in Washington. Have you guys been to Lower Washington State? I used to take Highway 97 from here up to Idaho, and once you hit past Morrow, it is just hundreds and hundreds of windmills. Really creepy at night. If you don't know they're there, you come over the hill, bunch of red blinking lights.
Yeah, I remember we drove through, was it northern Nevada, and then you said in Idaho? Yeah, there's so many out there. It's crazy.
Yeah, a lot of places.
It's funny you bring this up, David, because I was just listening to a gaming podcast this week, and they were talking about how PlayStation is making a more efficient PS5 with less storage to adhere to the EU's renewable energy initiatives. And so they're kind of the PlayStation or Sony as a company is trying to make this PS5 to make the people the hippies over in Europe happy and to get tax credits in Europe for their studios. So it's like, basically that's the main idea. And it's funny how, like you said, Charles, they're following the money a little bit, but it's like they're also using it as an excuse to lessen their spending money as well. Like they have to pay less for the storage now. They can just say, hey, it weighs less, it's less metal, it can cool better. So here you go. It's environmentally friendly PS5.
Yeah.
It's like ridiculous because it's basically the excuse of, oh, we're not going to use paper towels in the public bathroom anymore because we want to save the environment. No, you just don't want to pay for the paper towels, guys.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
That's the budget cost.
Well, and not to mention, I mean, without getting into an episode of Mythbusters, if you've ever seen the episode of Mythbusters on how air dryers are not actually sanitary by any means. And if you use your brain and stare at it for 5 seconds and just watch the water fling off of your hands in every direction, you don't have a lot of concern of, gee, this seems far more sanitary than wiping it and throwing it into a container. And it's not like paper grows on trees.
And also, it's sucking in the air from the bathroom itself.
Yeah,
Yes.
the,
Who knows what's
the
in the
intake
air?
is usually on the top, so it just
Yeah.
sucks it up, heats it up, and shoots it onto your hands.
It's
Yeah.
totally sanitary.
It's so,
Seems
totally,
fine.
totally.
Seems fine.
Seems
So
fine.
if you cough
That's
on
why they
top
have
of
them in
it-
every hospital.
Yeah, exactly.
You mean the hospital doesn't make you healthier, makes you sicker?
Oh, whoa!
What?
Going to a
crazy.
place with all the sick people. Actually, to add on to what you were saying, upon my research, I actually came across something that backs up what you claim too. Is because it has to do with, we'll get into it, but the Rockefellers have actually, as of 2020, gotten rid of all their oil endeavors.
Yeah.
In favor of clean energy. Now you ask
money.
yourself, why would one of the like most rich and powerful families in the world go away from the thing that made them rich? Has to be money, right?
Yeah.
I would think so. And what Joe Rogan was saying, like you have to build more nuclear power plants and coal power plants and wind turbines and all these type of things. Like the wind turbines are horrible on the environment. Have you ever looked at like how they construct those things and what they do with them when they die? They can't do anything with them. They're all fiberglass and they weigh a ton. I think they bury them, if I'm not mistaken, and it like toxifies the earth around it and
It kills birds and all
kills
whatnot,
birds and messes up the ecosystems.
It always
and,
interests me how people ignore that, but then they complain about the burying of radioactive waste that was already buried. Usually,
yeah,
we dug it up and put it back.
yeah. Yeah, where do we think we got uranium?
Yeah, well, there's natural nuclear fission, fusion. The one we use. There's
We
natural
use both,
sources
but
of that.
one's a little bit more.
Thank you. Touche. There's natural sources of that throughout the world. I think there's 3 or 4 really main ones that you literally could walk to this radioactive area. Not a suggested move, but you could walk to this radioactive area, look down and watch the steam come out of the rocks because the salt water comes in and it's a natural nuclear reactor creating steam.
Interesting.
It's always that classic, I came up with new energy, but is it steam? Yes, yes. just a different form of steam.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I don't want to get too off topic here by bringing this up, but I just was looking some things up, and apparently Meta has become the latest tech company. This is from the AP. This is the title. Meta's cut a 20-year deal to secure nuclear power to help meet surging demand for artificial intelligence and other computing needs at the Facebook's parent company. So it's like the amount of strain on
The net.
the infrastructure of the grid itself. We're looking at Illinois. We're looking at California, especially. It costs so much money to just pay for power here with PG&E and whatever else they have down south. I can't remember, but it's getting to the point where all this AI stuff is sucking so much. These data centers are sucking so much power from the grid that the tech companies themselves are investing in alternative power.
Yeah.
And I'm all for nuclear. I want more. Give me
It's
thorium.
safe.
Give me
It's
thorium
clean.
nuclear
You
reactors.
guys can't see my shirt, but I'm all about
hey, there you go.
I'm all
Yeah,
about the nuclear power with the Nuka-Cola shirt going on.
There we go. But yeah, I think it's interesting, and I think it was like 10 years ago I was listening to something, and they were saying how thorium nuclear power plants specifically, after I think a span of, I want to say it was like 20 years, the amount of waste can fit literally in like a half-gallon mayonnaise jar.
Oh, it's not much.
It's not much at all.
No.
Like,
Well, you
after,
think
like-
about it, a nuclear rod lasts on the poor side. Well, I'll just use a military aircraft carrier because those exist and they're very
Exists.
obvious.
Yeah.
7 years. It comes to port every 7 years because that's roughly how long the nuclear power needs to be changed in there. Now, there's little information here and there, specifics about, they changed this many rods on the ship, et cetera, et cetera. But you're talking about going out for 7 years and not having to come back that entire time. Is for fuel anyway. That seems a lot more efficient than tanking, hundreds of millions of gallons of oil to it.
And the risks that come with that, oil spills and everything like that.
Yeah.
Back on real quick on that Meta thing. Apparently, the company is called Constellation's Clean Energy Center. It was actually supposed to close in 2017, but they partnered with Meta to expand it. And
Oh, so that was a while ago then.
Yeah. Well, they
far
recently.
as
This was from
purchasing,
June this year, and they show a picture from the plant, which was in 2016. So they're taking this old closed down plant, but they're rebuilding it and extending another power plant in Illinois, and it'll the deal agreement goes into effect June 2027. So it's really, and it's. It says right here, in June 2027, when the state's taxpayer-funded zero emissions credit program expires. Interesting.
Interesting.
How convenient.
Yeah. So it's like,
Follow the money.
follow the carbon.
Yeah.
So David, what is your, do you have anything else on this, whether it be renewable or non-renewable, like nuclear energy? What about that specifically? Will that excel your carbon plan?
Well, that's the one thing that I thought was really funny is listening to that Joe Rogan episode with Alex Jones is Joe Rogan was basically talking about, oh yeah, nuclear is the future, man. We got to get away from coal and go towards nuclear because, it's cleaner and safer. And then Alex Jones cuts in and is like, no, nuclear's, too risky, too dangerous.
Oh, that's what Alex Jones was saying?
Classic.
What?
there's too many risks involved. But it's like with coal energy, it's like we're terraforming the planet, Team Carbon, that kind of a thing. So it's like being on Team Carbon myself. It's like I say, continue burning the coal.
Light them up.
Drill them all down.
If you think about the amount of CO2 we put out too, the virus is a wonderful example of showing us exactly how much CO2 we put out and what an effect it has, because people talked about all the clear skies. They didn't talk about the fact that it was cold as in hell, except in China, who are nice enough to continue to produce massive amounts of CO2. And India. If you look at their cool little charts, you can see the horrible, it's similar to the ice caps melting and global warming. Ice caps melting, I love to look at the date on the photos, and they like to just say, like 1985, yes, a picture of an ice cap in June of 1985 has more melt than a picture of an ice cap in January of 2020. I don't know how many people listening are around ice or temperatures, but January is colder than June.
Generally, yeah.
Generally.
What's really funny about that, about the whole CO2 thing, is people are just, basically anytime someone talks about coal plants, everyone's mind goes to, like the beginning of the industrial revolution. These coal plants just billowing smoke 24/7
versus smokeless coal.
And it's like modern coal plants, basically the vast majority of the emissions they produce are water vapor.
Yep. It's absolutely correct. Yeah. I recently did a stint on accident in the middle of Wyoming and learned a lot about different power plants just because I was there and had nothing going on because the engine blew up in my truck. But the fun part was I found out that if you look at the different power plants, a lot of power plants are being converted from coal, because it's air quote bad, over to natural gas, which actually has significantly more things being spewed out than coal does, because we've had coal for hundreds of years to refine it and make it work correctly. And so smokeless coal is really a thing. And it's kind of like people picture, same thing, people picture train engines and they think of all the smoke chuffing out the stack. And the reality is, if your train is puffing black smoke, you need to change your regulator, or more accurately, mess with your Johnson bar, for those two people that know what I'm talking about, because the engine itself should not be chuffing black smoke. You're burning inefficiency. And in something like power production, efficiency is where the money's at. So if you're puffing out huge amounts of old black coal rolling everywhere, then you're just running inefficiently. And that if you're running inefficiently, you're wasting money, guys. And corporations don't like wasting money.
Now I'm going to look at those big diesels that are rolling coal, and I'm just going to think, your engine's not running properly.
That's correct. It's like
not
a
as
Honda.
cool as it once was.
So when I was a kid, you used to see the Honda guys driving around, and that was a big thing. Is you'd watch the Honda, and you could tell who was air quote a ricer, as we called the slang back then, with their imported vehicle. I didn't make the term, guys. I just know the term. You could figure out which car you were going to be able to easily beat by looking above their exhaust on the bumper for the black scorch mark of all the excessive fuel being dumped overboard, because all they're doing is sooting their combustion chamber, blocking their spark plugs. And so I'd be out here with a 75 Buick running clean as a whistle, kicking the arse off of a little tiny Honda 1/3 my size with realistically no chance.
I'm really glad you brought up that year. What was that year for your...
1975.
Exactly. Like, I was thinking about old tractors. I remember I was working on my first year on the fires, and a lot of them, we would buy DEF and put it in for the diesel engines and stuff like that. And that was a new experience for me. But then to find out that from the older guys, they're like, yeah, there's still trucks out there and tractors as well that don't need to get checked for anything of that if it's before a certain year.
Yep.
I can't remember the specifics, but
75?
Well, California does it differently.
California does it differently.
I'm not terribly familiar with the laws
diesels,
here, but
but it's like you can have an old ass tractor from like the 50s and 60s and you're fine.
I have a
You don't have to put a
1953
thing on
GMC bus. It has nothing on it. My exhaust has no mufflers. It is flat out straight piped, and it definitely dumps coal when you floor it. But that's due to incredible inefficiency in that old two-stroke diesel. It sounds great, though. It just sounds glorious. Nothing like getting passed by a 40-foot double-decker bus on the freeway at 80 miles an hour.
Which I'm sure you've done several times.
No, 55 maximum.
Yeah, 80 in a double-decker bus? No.
GMC Scenic Cruiser, deck and a half. I have a dungeon underneath. That sounds dirtier than I intended.
Well, enjoy your yeah.
No,
there you go.
there you go. Enjoy my
dungeon.
dungeon.
Enjoy your dungeon underneath. Oh man, wait. So back on nuclear. So
Nuclear.
I know this might be a little renewable energy focus for you, David, and I know we should focus on the coal. But to get to where we are with coal, we had to go through so many sacrifices in terms of human lives. I mean, the guys who mined the coal through the 100 or so, or however many decades it was a big toll on the human race. And I think in some way you could say the same for nuclear in small quantities compared to coal. I think we probably lost far more people to coal mining than we did nuclear power
Well,
plants.
I think the idea of the human cost of any endeavor has more to do with exploitive power structures, chasing profit above all else, kind of a thing. Because basically, like, the rich and the powerful have always been pursuing material gain and using the poor as, basically pawns for this process for as long as civilization has existed. And so you look at the human cost of coal from the mining, the refining, and the use of it over the years, and yes, the human cost seems quite large, but you're looking at a form of energy that's been around for a long time. It's like there was coal before the Industrial Revolution, and in the modern day, over 100 years after the Industrial Revolution began, we're still using it. So there's a clear track record that you can look back on to see the human cost. Nuclear power is a much newer thing. And so as society has sort of progressed, as we become more industrialized, more efficient, as personal freedoms have increased in society, in general, the masses of poor people being fed to the machine of the profit-seeking rich has kind of evened out just a little bit. Our lifestyle today requires far less of a human cost than it did in the past, simply because we have better technology. So when you look at things like renewable energy, nuclear power, you're not going to see that track record of human loss over hundreds of years, because that technology hasn't existed for hundreds of years.
Time frame bias. That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. Time frame bias, because yeah, I mean, if you think about it too, with nuclear power, the primary thing seems to be, as far as the fear of it, is the fear of it. It's the classic what if. And the reality is, if you're worried about a nuclear plant exploding, you probably also should be worried about Yosemite and whether the earth is flat or not, and lots of other incredibly low chance things. The reality is you're going to get killed by a cow before you get nuclear fallout.
And that's the thing too, is there's a lot of fear over nuclear power, and people have this idea that if something goes wrong, that power plant's going to turn into a bomb. And that's simply not the case. Well, even the worst reactor meltdowns, there wasn't actually a nuclear explosion that went off.
It's like a seeping of radiation. I think. Like Fukushima, I think, was the most recent, wasn't it?
Yes, I think so.
Fukushima, I think that was in 2013-ish, 12.
Oh, that's right.
Like
Yeah,
that.
it was like
in Japan.
2013-ish,
Yeah.
And it was caused by a tsunami, and the reality was the tsunami was more of a problem for the most part.
For the most
Obviously,
part, yeah.
radiation poisoning bad, but
I remember on the news them saying, I think it was like I could get the number totally wrong here, but I want to say it was like something like a dozen or so people purposely stayed and sacrificed themselves to decommission it and shut it all down, and they knew they were going to die. And it's like, whoa, like this is some serious
and
stuff here.
if you think about the number of deaths too, one of the reasons why nuclear, you can think offhand, oh, I remember the last time a plant failed. It's because it's such a rare occurrence. It's a bit like an airplane crashing, right? An airliner. It is so rare out of the ones that exist that the failure is an outlier in the data set, and it draws attention to it. You know, if I say, oh, I got in a car crash, everybody's gotten in a car crash, or everybody knows somebody who has gotten in a car crash.
least, yeah.
And so being in a car crash, even though statistically literally 1,000,000 times deadlier than any nuclear anything we've done, no big deal.
Yeah, it's easier to focus on
Bias.
the times when it went bad versus all the times it succeeded. There's tens of thousands of flights a day
Yeah.
Yeah.
all around
Millions,
the world.
actually. but
Millions.
Yeah.
Oh, holy crap.
There's
Wow.
every 10 minutes out of a lot of airports all over the country and the world. It's
Yeah.
every 10 minutes. It's
And
crazy.
like we usually the news will report on a plane crash.
No,
unless
yeah.
it's some
100%.
certain, unless it's some certain
I think
thing.
it's I mean, it's
Yeah.
it's unfortunate, but it's a spectacle.
Yeah.
You know, it's a
unfortunately,
dark
yeah.
and morbid a spectacle, but I mean, planes don't go down pretty.
Yeah.
You know, so it makes for good news coverage, unfortunately.
Unless you're in a plane that's landing in the Indian Ocean or gets blipped out of existence. But that's a different conspiracy.
That's a different
theory.
conspiracy.
Yeah.
A different episode.
I utilized the Google here just for correctness, and it says that there are apparently 130,000 commercial flights per day worldwide.
Dang.
Commercial. That's just commercial. That's
Just
not
commercial,
private,
not
and
private.
that's not cargo. And we all know FedEx flies airplanes, so that's just a matter of time based on the driving record.
It's a lot of birds in the air.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's see. Oh, speaking of the carbon footprint, we have countries like we've mentioned before, like China and India, absolutely just pumping into the atmosphere, man. Like they are just going to town. And China's really bad. India's worse, I think, from what I've read. And that could accelerate your carbon theory, David.
I
for
think
sure.
their street food alone probably contributes to some horrible.
Bill, I believe that's methane.
Though
In both ways.
Though it looks
Yeah.
amazing, don't watch the person making it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Surf safe. What's that?
You talking about carbon, you start talking about carbon footprint too, you know, because that's the new hot point way to try to do it. Carbon footprint, you know, the single most thing that creates the largest amount of carbon per ton. Do you know what it is?
No.
Do you know what it is?
No.
It's concrete.
Oh wow.
That thing that all the facilities that are supposed to be green and that all the buildings are made out of, it's concrete. It puts out per square meter almost 1 per square meter of carbon. It's ludicrous, the amount of carbon that the concrete process puts out. It's mind-boggling to think about it. So every time you walk through a city, just look around and think somewhere there's this solid amount of carbon floating around, and somebody paid for it.
Through contractor work, obviously. But you know, somebody got paid. That's
And
fine.
speaking of costs too, the really funny thing is the messaging on climate change seems to be like, oh, all the rich oil tycoons, they want to keep you enslaved
They're owning our shit.
to fossil fuels so they can continue to profit at your expense. But the reality is the people who are pushing this sort of green industry thing on, they're the ones profiting at our expense, because according to the research limited research, but according to the research that I did, somebody like averaged out the cost per benefit to like the human race of the kind of green energy stuff that we're doing. And this was a British article, so it was in pounds. So it was like
Sounds
per
heavy.
100 pounds spent on renewable energy, there's like a net benefit of like 3 pounds or something like that. So we're literally making people poorer in a measurable way to try and stave off this global temperature increase that seems to be doing us a lot more good than harm.
I know someone whose ex-wife, I think, used that same math for their accounting. If I have $100, I can save $3. You know, that reminds me of the episode of Burns and Allen Show, which is a very old TV show. But she goes to the department store, and Gracie Allen, just one of the most fabulous minds. If you haven't seen anything of Burns and Allen, you need to watch it, because it's the way that woman's brain works is just astronomically impressive. She had a fully flushed out and completely logical reason that you could not argue with why she could walk into a department store, buy a bunch of stuff for nothing, and end up being paid on the way out. And I see things like that, and I think there's some corporate accounting right there.
Yeah.
Dang, this is an old ass show.
It's a good show. It's black and white.
Yeah.
If you've ever seen Oh God or Oh God, You Devil, George Burns, that's the guy with the cigar, short guy.
Oh yeah, yeah, okay.
That's where most people know him. Burns and Allen since like mid 50s.
Dang, that's awesome. Yeah, okay. Well, Billy, do you have anything you want to add to this India discussion and the methane and the food and the potential thorium that China's been putting into their country for years, by the way?
Yeah, I think that it's interesting because I think I watched a video not too long ago about how the amount of pollution that those third world countries that don't care about the environment, quasi, quote unquote, care about the environment, pump into the atmosphere basically undoes everything that we do, and how it's a luxury of the rich to care about such things, like to not care about where they're getting their food from, or important things like not getting malaria.
I kind of remember reading something about that during the virus. I vaguely remember that China put out something like twice the amount that we had air quote saved over the last 50 years every like 3 months.
Basically.
Yeah. So it basically undoes all these green initiatives, but when at the core of it, it's a question for the people who have time to ponder it. You know, whereas because we don't think about how lucky we are to live in first world countries, to be able to walk to the grocery store and go, I feel like a foreign food from across the world, and have it frozen, throw it in your microwave, and have it done in 20 seconds. Like, the majority of human history has not had that luxury, and most of them still don't. And I think we forget about that. And it's just interesting that it seems to be a concern of the wealthy, because we don't think of ourselves as wealthy, but we are as a nation, that we put all these things into motion of like, and it feels like on the common man side, it's a place from a good heart. We care about our planet. We want it to be here for our kids and our kids and our kids' kids. But the amount of damage we're doing by pursuing these things, like, like the cobalt mines, and even like another conspiracy, but like the Demir's Diamond Company doing diamonds and stuff like that. Like all these things that we can pursue is just a luxury that the other majority of the human race does not get to enjoy.
And that was kind of, I think, the argument of opening up the Alaskan pipeline again.
Yeah.
Was because, hey, like, not only can we not feasibly care about the environment the way we are right now because of where the economy is, but where our people's jobs are as well.
Yeah.
We need to reopen this because it was tens of thousands of people, I believe, or maybe not that much, but,
a decent chunk.
A decent chunk
Just
of
sent
people.
home.
Just sent home. And
Yeah.
it's like, and they were working there for, years, and now they got to go find something else to do.
I mean, that's the reason I don't own an electric car is I don't make enough money to purchase an electric car.
Yeah.
I was looking at a Nissan Leaf that has a 35-mile range.
Just 35?
Well, most of them had like 100 to start with, but they're 10 years old now. So it's a 35, 40-mile range, which means
battery
I'm paying $2,000 for a battery that can get me to Chico if I don't mind being there for 10 hours.
Oh, what was it? I was talking to my sister who just got a Toyota RAV4. Gosh dang it, what is it? Toyota RAV4. Gosh dang it, what kind of car is that? Toyota what?
Well, RAV4 is a car Toyota makes.
No, I know, but what's
Is it Prius?
No, it's a Toyota. But anyway, so she got it, but they had a $13,000 Tesla from 2016, like Gen 1. And it's like, what's the battery degradation on that thing?
Oh, it's bad. It's
bad,
batteries.
And you got to pay, a couple, tens of thousands of dollars more for another battery.
Yeah.
Is that right? I could be
No,
totally
that's
wrong.
completely.
And the question you got to ask yourself is, where do we put the batteries when they throw them
When
out?
they die. Yeah, exactly.
Like, okay, it goes to like a green renewal thing. Yeah, but where does that go?
In the ground.
I had an uncle who worked for for a long time for the trash company, and he would say, I was like, "Oh, do you guys recycle?" He goes,
Nope.
"Don't worry about it."
Yeah, don't worry about it.
I'm
Exactly.
like, what? He goes, you don't get it. Like some of it goes to
of it, yep.
what they need or what they want will go, but the amount of like aluminum that they have to try to recycle, you only get so much aluminum out of 1,000 cans.
Yeah.
It's sheet metal. It's very, very thin. He said most of it just gets buried with the rest of it.
Yep.
Yep.
That's what at my work, and this is a education environment, and basically the trash guy told us, yeah, it don't matter. Like we just take it. It's all in the same bin. It's not recycle or plastic or plant waste.
You could
or
sort it
whatever.
if you want. They unsort it.
Yeah, exactly. They unsort it. It's like it doesn't matter.
Ooh, another conspiracy. Waste Management charges you double for the same service. It's just
true.
a truck with a different paint job.
I ran into that
I
during
get
the
a
time
little-
period
yeah,
where I lived in Chico. I
yeah.
canceled my recycling service. They said, you can't do that. Up north in the place I live, that's a thing because there's no recycling facility. It all goes in the same truck.
Yeah.
100% of the time.
Yeah.
But the cost of the garbage, because it's an essential service, is price locked at $15 a month.
Yeah.
The recycling's not. So they sell it to you as a package bundle for like $80 a month, but you can tell them to stuff it and that you don't want the recycling, but they make it incredibly inconvenient because follow the money. And realistically, same thing. They're just driving around in a truck, dumping environmental. I mean, how much does the white, that's the brand, by the way, the white garbage truck put out in emissions, I guess, of just general emissions compared to the amount of the like one can that comes out of the can that actually makes it to a recycling center?
That's true.
Yeah, it's interesting. It makes me want to call my garbage company. Thankfully, I'm not with Waste Management because they would give me a tizzy. But the one we have, David, we might just get the bigger trash can and then just forego recycling. Also, we live on a farm, so we don't need the plant thing
Bury
anyway,
your own
so-
cans.
bury your,
I'm
yeah,
not
I
sure
want
you
my
can do
radioactive
that.
waste to go out of my house, please. You know, all my methane.
It could be
you know?
discovered and unearthed thousands of years in the future as relics from a different.
Is that how you're
what
gonna sell
totem?
that?
That's what I think of my Xbox One X's box I still have. I just think it's going to be an artifact.
This must have
one
been
day.
a relic of
just keep
religious
it around.
meaning.
I've noticed that's the default. If they don't know what it is, it's a religious article.
This is a 2021 Coke can.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
That was over 1,000 years ago.
Yeah, a Rise of
just-
Skywalker 2019.
That's when they used to drink
Coca-Cola
liquids.
It's priceless.
Drink liquids. Oh man,
There's a pill for that now. There's an
Yeah,
app for that.
exactly.
Yeah.
There's a pill for that much.
that reminds me of what is that movie? Oh, Back to the Future, where Marty goes to the future.
Yeah.
He's like super amazing at that arcade game, like the old arcade game from his time, and the kid's like, you got to use your hands? That's like a baby game.
I guess I'll cap off the third world country thing with India saying, "Why can't we have our industrial revolution? Come on, guys. You know,
Yeah.
you guys had yours, and we're selling a bunch of land to China anyway. So
I mean, India can have theirs just as long as they stay in India.
yeah,
And there's not a mountain of trash that floats down the river and, ends up on our shores.
It's always astounding.
Not
how
yet.
people
Yeah,
aren't
not
aware.
yet.
yeah,
There
yeah.
is an island. That's another conspiracy. That's not a conspiracy. It's real. There is an island the size of a small island of just trash floating in our ocean.
it is.
I
yeah.
believe the people that live in New York would object.
Oh, those poor
sure.
islanders.
Bring back. Good thing we don't have any. What is it? Haitians? No, in our audience.
Or do we?
What country was it? Was it Puerto Rico at that
I don't know what you're trying to say.
No, that Trump rally. That Trump rally where they had that comedian do a thing.
I think it was Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico.
Oh yeah, that's the guy from
I have
Kill
no
Tony
idea
or
what
whatever.
yeah, the Kill Tony guy.
Yeah.
Tony Hinchcliffe. That's
Yeah.
his name.
Yeah.
And he compared Puerto Rico to the floating garbage island.
Oh yeah.
Like he did that in Puerto Rico?
No.
No,
It was in
no. Oh,
New
okay.
York, I think, or something.
Yeah,
it
at
was
a
like
rally.
in New York.
Yeah,
During the
managed to
re-election
just
campaign.
upset an entire, island of people.
That seems like that's fine.
I was just gonna make a joke about like good thing we don't have any
I think it's
Puerto
actually
Rican
Haitians.
fans.
I think he might have said Haitians.
So that bringing up floating garbage island might trigger them.
Thankfully, we got the Panama
Wait.
Canal back, baby. Oh, you guys have anything else about this climate change? topic?
I think people should Google how much CO2 a volcano puts out, and that's where I'll stop, because I will go on for an hour and a half about the logical fallacies involving Pleistocene epochs and the previous, if man's the one that's causing all the problems, why did it keep happening according to the same scientists?
Yeah.
I mean, if we weren't here, why did it happen?
And also, there's also the argument of the Earth has been around for a long time, and we have not been around for as long to record a lot of that history. So it's who's to say that this isn't
Or have we?
Ah. Are you a young creationist theorist? No, I'm joking. But who's to say that? Who's to say that we've been through these cycles of greenery, of coldness, of ice age, whatever before? And so who's to say that this is climate change when this might just be a normal pattern of the Earth?
Well, and
the equator and all that kind of stuff.
I am actually a creationist, but I'm also not offended because I'll use...
No, I said young Earth creationist.
I don't know what the difference is. I'm not well educated, ladies and gentlemen.
So young Earth creationism is the idea. So there's old Earth creationism and young Earth creationism. Young Earth creationism, it adheres specifically to a literal breakdown of the genealogies in Genesis to estimate the age of the Earth, and usually the
begots.
The number that they come up with is
6,500-ish.
Yeah, around that.
That's a lot of begotten.
Well, I do not object to that. Personally, I believe in the Bible, but I also run into this problem of that sort of assumes that everybody wrote down their names and their kids' names correctly for a lot. Having been in the military and tried to watch a group of people count to 25, I don't know that because that's not a biblical part of the Bible. That's a tallying part. That's not so-and-so said. That's not inspiration. That's, hey, we wrote down who Billy's granddad was.
Yeah.
So personally, I'm not sure how much I think that the numbers that science, air quote, gives us is wrong. But in that thing, they also admit that we definitely had something before, because they talk about cavemen and Neanderthals, and every time you turn around, there's a new study saying that they definitely were more advanced than we thought 15 minutes ago. It's the nature of science. Science is not some great compendium of knowledge. It's a process.
It's a theory.
It's a process through which knowledge is found.
If we got to this point within 2,000 years, and there's millions of years before that,
exactly.
Why was it all hunter-gatherers for that time?
Yeah.
That's the argument, I think.
Well, we're smarter than everybody else. Didn't you know that? Right now is the smartest we've ever... Wait a minute. This doesn't seem...
My dad said something, and kind of like on my ending topic on this specific theory or conspiracy is that my dad would always say, you're kidding yourself if you think that we could make a dent on the Earth and it not recover fully.
There's a meme for that. It says, silly humans, you're not killing me, you're killing yourself.
Exactly. He said, we might off ourselves eventually. That's a very real possibility. War, famine, whatever. He's like, but the Earth will keep on trotting.
It's a rock.
It's a rock.
That's true, yeah.
It's like, it will, maybe life will look a little different because of, depending on what, plague we've infested the world with, but it will continue because the plague itself is life. So,
That goes straight into
bacteria.
And that goes straight into the trials topic about the return of the plagues and the end of the earth and Revelation. Ooh. No, that's not what you picked. You picked the past, not the future.
I did pick the past.
Do we want to go into that next?
No, we'll skip it.
What?
Well, we'll skip it. Well, we touched on my main point right there, which is just the fact that the earth has been around. And so again, my topic is a pile of poop, effectively, in reference to the amount of research that was done. I picked all three of your topics very successfully
You deleted your topic from the list.
being...
I just saw it.
Yes, before being accurately picked myself. But yeah,
let's talk about that. Did we go through the Ice Age?
And see, again, so my belief is different than the argument because I don't believe that the time frame given by science is even remotely accurate, because I believe that the Bible does give us a much shorter time frame. What that time frame is, I think that, like many things in life, the reality falls somewhere between the two truths, right? Not that there's such thing as or not such thing as perfect truth, because there absolutely is. But when you have different people's opinions, if you've ever listened to witness statements, right? When you have different people's opinions 99% of the time, the truth lies in the middle between the two, and you need to moderate and use discernment and logical thinking and your God-given brain to figure out what's going on. And so if you look back in the millions of years of supposed history, you look at multiple mass extinction events. Sometimes it's things as simple as a giant rock fell down from the sky and bonked out a bunch of dinosaurs.
The Gulf of Mexico.
In the Gulf of Mexico, Yucatan Peninsula sometimes. And other times you look at like we said before, the transitional epochs, the different dyings off. The last one was due to excessive oxygen and excessive CO2 from a bunch of, the one after that, excessive CO2s from an assortment of volcanoes just suddenly going off for no theoretically known reason. And the reality is, if you look at the fragility of our life, of the way that we live, if like 12 of the 100 and something, there's probably less than that, but 12 of the main volcanoes in the Ring of Fire went off all at once, this entire argument about CO2 becomes instantly completely irrelevant.
Yeah.
Because the amount of CO2 released by, say, Kilimanjaro going off is obscene. It's hundreds of years of China.
Do we have someone that we could look up the amount of carbon that was produced by Mount St. Helens? Because that's the most recent eruption we got, right?
Well, of that style.
Of that style, yeah.
That's within what I'm going to call recent historical
Besides
memory.
like the ones in Hawaii
Locally,
and the ones that go off.
Locally, that's the largest one.
Frequently.
It's a metric poop ton.
Yeah.
The reality is.
I had family members who were alive during that time. I wasn't. But
youngins.
But my mom said that it in San Francisco it blotted out the sun.
Look at the fires.
Yeah.
The fires in California blot out the sun and release hundreds of thousands of pounds of
Metric
everything
tons.
into the environment.
Oh, that's just the heavy equipment they're running.
Oh, yeah,
to put out the fire.
It's that one D5 over there trying to cut the fire line.
Smokey the Bear.
Call. That's where it comes from.
Smokey the Bear has his work cut out for him.
You know that outside of this area, that's a thing, right? The Smokey Bear effect. Oh, okay.
What's the
cool.
Smokey Bear effect?
Side topic.
Before we get into that, to answer your question, just from Google Gemini, the 1980 eruption of Mount St. Helens, is that the one you're talking about?
Yes.
AI.
You're a young feller. Released approximately 10 million tons or 9 million metric tons of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere during the initial explosive phase,
not even the follow-up.
which lasted 9 hours. So just within the 9 hours, that was that.
Wow.
So basically 1 million tons per hour.
How crazy is
That's
that?
crazy. Not including what happened afterward.
Yeah.
So it's like, I think the Earth would be okay.
I think the Earth would be okay. Yeah.
Keep on trucking.
Yeah,
like that
I think
D6 over there.
I think she's made of a little bit tougher stuff than we are.
Like your like your bus, Charles.
Yeah, like the old Greyhound bus.
But it's
That's
so
his Dutch love all
pretty.
Well,
I'm trying to look up a comparative note of how much CO2 China releases in one day.
let's
Because that's
look
the
at
one
that.
we've been talking about.
Good luck getting accurate data.
Yeah, no, I don't use Gemini, and therefore I'm
While-
missing the magical sudden. Oh, here we go. Here's a chart. It's a chart. There's no numbers on the. Who makes a chart with no numbers? This is not how.
well, while you look
From a
that,
website called statistics.com.
while you look that up real quick, I think it's interesting how, again, there has been so many different cataclysmic events on Earth. I mean, we look at the Bible, there's those, but there's also just the ones in our own lifetime. Like, there's quite a few, maybe not cataclysmic, but close to that.
Y2K.
Exactly. Computers just shut her down. Shut them down.
Shut her down.
Shut her Windows down.
Yeah.
But it's like, I want to kind of circle this back with the Bible, because I believe the Bible is an instruction booklet.
Of course.
But I don't think it gives us every answer for everything in our modern era, in the sense of it doesn't give us, I think, every single person that has lived, obviously. Begot. Did somebody miss? Was there somebody died? It's
The human element.
the human element of the Bible, I think,
Telephone
is
game.
there.
Bit like translation.
However, I don't want to get into a debate on inspired scripture, but David can if he wants. But I will say is that I think it doesn't answer everything, like, of the history of the earth.
Yeah.
But it's in the context of the beginning to the end.
So what I will say about biblical inspiration is that the scriptures are inspired by God through and through, God breathed. But when we're talking about things like Genesis, you have to look at what is it actually trying to transmit? What is it actually trying to teach us? And one thing that I'm almost certain it's not trying to teach us is how old the universe is.
Definitely.
And we already know, just as a matter of looking at history, that ancient peoples did not look at things like genealogies, things like numbers, the same way that we do today. We are very obsessed with facts. We are very obsessed with data.
Assumed facts.
Yeah, we are very obsessed with hard data and trying to get that across. Ancient writers were more obsessed with narrative. And so pretty much everything else bent towards whatever their narrative goal was for their writing.
It's because we're storytellers.
Exactly.
That's how
and so things like genealogies in the Bible are there to serve the narrative purpose. And since the point of the narrative is not to teach us from a scientific perspective how old the universe is, the fact that God inspired the scriptures is not in conflict with that, because there was never the intention of, it was never God's intention to transmit information like that to us.
Right.
It was God's intention to transmit the narrative purpose of Genesis, which is to say that God is the source of everything, that he is the creator of all, that he is sovereign over all. That's why I personally don't subscribe to a literal interpretation of the creation story in Genesis, because when you look at it, the purpose of the creation story in Genesis was not to give us a science textbook answer for how the universe began. It was to tell a story that contradicted the narratives of the time, where people worship things like the sun, they worship the moon, they worship the sky, they worship the earth. The Genesis creation narrative was basically to say that all these things that people worship as gods are actually subject to God. They were created by him, and he is sovereign over all.
And I agree with that. And like, that's when I talk about the inaccuracy, it's well within what you're talking about. And I'll give you an example is of what I mean when I say the human element of the Bible. Because again, I also believe clearly, you guys know me, people on the internet don't, but I very clearly believe the Bible through and through 100%. Let me give you an example of human error being introduced into the Bible. There is a verse that is famously quoted for faith like a mustard seed in reference to, and if you look at the NASB translation of that verse, it says faith the size of a mustard seed. That is incorrect. 100%, because the context around it is he's referring to, and in fact, several verses later, Jesus directly says your faith was too small. Mustard seed has one of the most astronomical things in existence. It starts out at roughly 1/32 of an inch in diameter. So little tiny seed. From that creates this giant tree with these massive roots, and they bear this great fruit, and it can live for generations off of this one tiny seed. It's not about the size, it's about the comparative note. The original translation of faith like a mustard seed is accurate. Trying to change it into modern vernacular of faith the size of a mustard seed shows that whoever did that translation, and I don't know their names, but I'm sure it's in there somewhere, they didn't actually comprehend or follow the actual point of the parable, which ironically was exactly why Jesus spoke in parables, so that things that were not. And so those sorts of errors can compile, and you end up with the begots or whatever being mildly inaccurate. Because if you look at our scientific method, and which again is not a compendium of knowledge, it is a way to find information. And you look back in history, we have proof of Noah's flood. Unequivocally, there was a flood during this period called the Younger Dryas. It is now established scientific fact. The only part that conflicts with, I believe you called them young creationist theory, is the fact that they say that that is 10,000 years ago, 10 to 12,000 years ago. Now, I have my own objections to looking at it and going, it's under 8 inches of dirt, thus it must be 10,000 years. But that's a separate argument. With a fallacy in regards to
layers, Charles. The sediment layers.
Yes. Yeah. It's a good thing that, like, you know, a mild fire in the area wouldn't add a complete and total discrepancy to that.
I'm pretty sure my dog just buried some of the grass in our yard with, you know, about 10,000 years of sediment layers.
Yes, my dog is 100,000 years old. But nonetheless, so if you look through the historical record, things like the Younger Dryas or all these epochs, you have all these mass extinction events. And sometimes one of the things we can do is we can look at that 8 inches of dirt and test it and determine what the CO2 levels were of the environment and especially fossilized tissue, and look at the amount of CO2, the amount of oxygen, the amount of different things that these plants were taking in, and therefore that part reasonably accurate, and say, hey, whenever this plant did exist, it definitely suffocated. So if you're saying people are always what causes the problem, why is that a thing that's been consistently happening throughout written history? And ergo, as again, we ended up in the entire topic of, is that a thing that we are causing, or is that something where we've actually, and again, science with its massive conflicting information, depending on who you listen to, has said directly that we have put off an ice age purely by the fact that the amount of CO2 and then volcanoes, which they slip very quietly in the end of, we put off so much CO2 and also volcanoes that we now have been putting out, because we're over as using using the terminology of the scientific report, so to speak, we are overdue for a massive ice age. And it's just because of the, wait for it, greenhouse effect, the greenhouse gases. We're warmer than we should be, and people like warm. Venice, maybe not. Some coastlines, maybe not, but...
It's sinking.
Yes. Yes, it is.
And you know what the interesting thing is, too, is this is something that the article that I read brought up is the potential for human growth in prosperity due to the earth just being warmer overall and better for growing food can actually potentially offset certain negative effects of climate change. So, like, for example, poorer countries that might be at risk of increased flooding or whatever due to this man-induced climate change. If you factor in the potential for prosperity growth across the human race in general as a result of the planet warming, we're looking at the possibility that poorer countries will, by the time climate change actually starts producing measurable negative effects instead of a net benefit as it has been, that there will be enough resources available for those countries to make, to essentially, you know, prepare for the disasters that might befall them.
And that's the thing about science and the scientific method that I love so dearly about it, is that if you make a theory, you only need one point to disprove a theory. People like to forget that or ignore it. If I have a valid reason why that theory is bogus, and it is one reason, the theory, therefore, by definition, can't be true. If you disagree with me, have a talk with Albert Einstein, because that's why he knew 100% that his theories were incorrect, because he could disprove his own theory. He went, this is wrong, but it's the best we got right now. And he was completely correct, but it should be applied to lots of other things. I mean, there's examples in Texas, as far as dinosaurs go, of footprints underneath a dinosaur's footprint, which means a dinosaur stepped on the footprint. And there's vases in Southern America, among other places, that show pictures of dinosaurs. And if you're telling me that weird little animal on the side is a horse, then why isn't that a dinosaur? You know?
Please tell me there's a vase of us riding dinosaurs.
Yes,
That
there
would
are.
be
No,
cool.
100%. Look it up. Google it. It's great.
Vase of us writing.
Vase.
down.
Yeah, like
the-
a
a vase
or
with
like
pictures.
a cave painting of us riding dinosaurs.
You should Google that if you can, because that is 100% a thing. That is part of the problem is there are pictograms of us writing different things. And we take that a step further and you think about it. And one of my favorite anthropologists is a man named Jack Horner. He is not excessively popular in the scientific community, but he is also extremely popular in the scientific community. He has a saying during his TED Talk called "Scientists like to name things," which is so true because he talks about, the process by which dinosaur bones are dug up, right? And we think about, some dude out in the field somewhere digging, and that's an accurate sentiment. But most of the time, what happens after that is what's important, which is somebody wraps it up and ships it to a museum somewhere, and no one looks at it. No one does any real tests of it because they don't want to break it. Well, Jack Horner doesn't give two rats behinds. He cuts them in half and starts looking at the inside of the bones to see how old these dinosaurs are, because so far people have been, and it's crazy to think about, people have been looking at it and going, that's a smaller dinosaur. Gee, it looks just like a tiny T-Rex. Must be a different dinosaur. But you cut them in half, and it turns out some of the smaller dinosaurs that look like a T-Rex is literally just a younger T-Rex. And genetically, it tests out as a young, but nobody bothered to cut them in half because, holy cow, you can't cut your dinosaur bone in half, then you won't have a dinosaur bone. How will you show it in your museum?
That's true.
Right? And
Profit.
profit.
Loss of profit.
Exactly. And there's so many of these things, so many of these things historically, these all poke a hole in the narrative of, and it ties into the CO2 thing because it's the same science that says that. It
Carbon
pokes a
dating.
hole in it, and all you have to do is poke one hole in it, and you've disproved a theory. It's much harder to prove a theory than it is to disprove a theory. Flying spaghetti monster is my favorite example, which is the reason why creationists, as far as legally exist in school, is because you actually can genuinely prove that a flying spaghetti monster created the universe with significantly more evidence than evolution.
Oh, you mean Cthulhu?
Oh my God, I will
He made
never
of
look
spaghetti?
at Cthulhu the same.
Now
He's
I'm
a
picturing him
flying
as spaghetti.
spaghetti
I'm now
monster.
picturing him
Flying
as spaghetti.
monster,
Ugh.
yeah.
Well,
I went to a
be-
random YouTube video to look, and there's like some old black and white photos of some artifacts in a museum that's all messed up, and they're very much dinosaur-looking. It's from Cambodia, I believe, but it's very much dinosaur-looking figures.
There's lots of examples. They're a little hard to find due to the
something like
government.
that, basically.
Oh wow.
So it's like,
And people like to go, oh, that's
it's fake.
something else. It's fake. It's
Yeah.
CGI. Would someone please explain to me how they CGI'd a Polaroid in the 50s or 60s or whatever it was? The tin plate, they're
The Discovery Channel did better CGI
Yeah,
than
I
some
mean-
stuff out there.
And yeah, it's easy to fake some, especially
so true.
nowadays.
Yeah.
It's real easy to fake stuff with the way AI is and stuff. But
The more
a
we
lot of this exists if you look at it.
the more we get into the science discussion, the more I think that Cave Johnson from Portal 2 was right. Like the more I think about it, like the way they wrote his character is exactly how it is, and it's for science. And then the game, and then you finally get back to the top, like you were supposed, like in the beginning of the game, and it's an AI running the factory.
Yeah.
In science.
Yeah, and that's
And the cake was a lie.
Yeah, it was
well,
a
there
lie.
was a cake though. It's just whether or not you were going to get it was the
Yeah,
lie.
that's the lie.
I really hope that's not a Soylent
That is
Green
the
reference.
the metaphorical what is it? Piece of food on the end of a
carrot on a stick.
Carrot on a stick. Yes.
Yeah. So why should we trust the science in quotes?
Again, science. And see, this is where I agree with you, and I also horribly disagree. Because I agree that we should not trust the science. When you start talking about people going, trust the science. As soon as someone says trust the science, and they're not referring to a method, I immediately get upset because science, I said it earlier, and this is actually an Adam Savage quote, a man who I do not have a lot of like commonality in regards to a philosophical thought process. I think he's an awesome person, but I just completely disagree. I'm very religious. He's not. But he has said one thing that I absolutely love, and that is that science is not a compendium of knowledge. It's not some great repository which things can be tested against. It is a process through which information and knowledge can be sought and should be used to find, verify, and confirm that knowledge. And biblically speaking, that is literally what Peter tells you to do. Go find knowledge, and when you find it, find more.
Yeah, the new curse word, instead of, go F yourself, it should be go find the solution.
Ooh,
That's what you should do.
go find the solution.
Go find the
I
solution.
like that.
Critical thinking. What's that? Why would
Don't
you
say
want to
that
do
on a
that?
random Reddit, David. Go
Ooh.
for it.
Critical thinking has to do with what I'm going to talk about.
I think we
too.
should go there next, if that's all right.
it does,
You guys want to, any more on the cataclysms, young creationists, science in general, David, Charles, Billy?
I would just like to say that is part of the problem we run into, and we being just generically people with a brain. So include yourself or don't include yourself. It's on you whether or not you.
Depends on the
If
day.
you get offended by this, then why are you including yourself and people without a brain? That's the problem that we run into. Is a lot of people nowadays just go, I read this somewhere and whatever, and it's because that's what you're taught in school. I mean, I've seen hundreds of kids go, oh, I learned it on Wikipedia. Do you have any idea how many web pages, things on Wikipedia I've written in there for fun because I thought it was hilarious? Early internet people know this without question, that you don't trust Wikipedia because some guy somewhere just wrote something there that's probably they think is hilarious. And yet kids these days in school just don't even think about it. They just, well, bam, oh, I read it on the internet. It must be true. And society has come so far from, hey, don't talk to strangers. Don't go out and get yourself hurt. Don't trust everything you read, and don't sit there blindly following stuff. But now we go on the and don't trust the internet. We now go on the internet and summon some random person we've never met to our specific home address and trust that they didn't tamper with the food. Who learned stuff like that?
Yeah,
We
that's
went
true.
from don't take candy from strangers to the Jews are evil.
And ask, and the stranger has good candy.
Very good candy.
Yeah, it's just, yeah.
It makes you wonder where the kids got that.
Yeah, and I think that scientists themselves are always saying that science is out. Their main purpose behind science is to disprove other scientists, essentially. Like the sciences, as our knowledge compendium grows, as you said,
Scientific process.
the scientific process grows, and we learn and discover more things about the universe especially with the add-on of AI. And what the powerhouse that gives us, and it can compute so much more fast than we can.
Well, speak for yourself on that one.
Yeah, but I mean, like accumulatively, I guess is it takes a much shorter time period, but we're constantly trying to disprove what There's so much more information available, is I guess what I'm trying to say. And each day it seems like there's more and more information.
Yeah, that's the thing too that I always run into when I see discussions about, did God create the universe, or was it always there, or did it come out of nothing?
Like someone spoke it into existence?
Yeah, it
Weird.
seems like when you try to press somebody who isn't a believer on, okay, if God didn't create it, then where did it come from? They simply say, well, I don't know. And, you should be comfortable saying, I don't know too, but you're religious and you had to invent this whole God thing in order to cover your lack of knowledge. But it's like, when you look at people who don't believe in God, when you look at the way they live their lives, when you look at the choices they make, the things they say, they're not simply acting as if they don't know. They've already made a choice. They're living their life ignoring the existence of God. They've already made their choice.
Yes.
They've put all their eggs into one basket that God doesn't exist until they, quote unquote, see evidence that he does. And it's like,
Open your eyes.
it's like, that's not, you can't pretend to simply be neutral and completely factual, and then just proceed to live your life as though God doesn't exist. Because if you really look at the issue of where did the universe come from, there's like, it's not like God is some ridiculous fairy tale and then you have the coolly rational narrative of the atheists. It's like, whatever you choose to believe about the origins of the universe, it requires a leap of faith in some
Yes.
way.
Either for or against doesn't matter.
Yeah, our knowledge as far as how the universe began is just woefully incomplete, and I think will remain so for quite some time.
Well, and there's two things on that too, you know, like the first thought that hops into my brain is just the repeating chorus of, even if you decide not to decide, you still have made a choice.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Spoken by someone who I believe was an atheist.
It's like,
Then the second part of that is just that in itself requires a massive ignoring of evidence.
yeah. And that's the thing too, is like, there's the idea that it's totally ridiculous on the face of it to say that God creating the universe is a ridiculous, superstitious fairy tale narrative, and then go and invent your own fairy tale narrative that just sounds more scientific, and say that you have
bigger words.
Yeah, you have the intellectual high ground. And then when somebody presses you on it, you say, "Oh, well, I just don't know.
Yeah.
I'm comfortable saying I don't know." It's like they want to have their cake and eat it too.
I always thought that the atheists pretty much were saying the same thing that we were. Because I had some friends growing up that were atheists, and they would say, well, you know, the Big Bang and everything like that. I'm like, you're basically explaining the Bible to me. I mean, it's just different words.
But you see, instead of reading the Bible, they spent like dozens of years and millions of dollars of space equipment to arrive at what the Bible says.
Exactly. And I remember there was
We've
this one time.
discovered that everything came from a big bang, like someone spoke it into existence, and light travels faster, dark travels faster than light, almost like the Bible said, let there be light. Weird. Crazy
concept. I remember,
it's like we have the evidence. We have the physical evidence of that initial burst of light when God said, let there be light, in the form of the cosmic background radiation.
Yeah. I think science is just really our feeble attempt at understanding the language in the writings of God. I mean, like, he wrote it into existence, these laws, you know, and we just watched a video the other day about gravity and stuff, and how it's not like the sheet that we learned about. It's more of like a displacement more than a sheet.
It's not a ball sitting in a tension sheet leaning down. It's actually a temporal displacement over time, because the reality is gravity is caused by time.
Yeah, it's a time displacement instead of
That's
more
temporal
weight.
relativity, by the way, speaking of Albert
But
Einstein.
I remember walking with this kid that I'm still really good friends with in middle school. And
Is he still a kid, or is he?
well, you know, I guess I can't say kids anymore when I'm in my 30s. But
I mean, you can.
to me, we're still kids all at heart, right? But he was a devout atheist, and he said that was his own claim, was a devout atheist. And we were kind of speaking about theology, you know, and he was asking me some questions, and he was like, well, what do you believe after you die? And I was like, well, you know, I kind of said, you know, you return back to the creator, the energy that gave you, and God, you know. And he goes, I was like, well, what do you believe? He goes, well, there's nothing, there's darkness. I'm like, and I don't know why this blew his mind. It's so simple, but I went, well, wouldn't you have to be conscious to perceive darkness?
Ooh.
And because he's a very smart guy, very well spoken, and it just floored him. He just was quiet, and he went, well, and we didn't talk about it for the rest of the walk, because we used to walk. This, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know how young you are, but this is when we used to walk to school. But and ride our bikes and skateboards. Yeah, not
In the snow.
We didn't have segways back then, but yeah, no, it, for whatever reason, floored him, because it's like, oh wait. Yeah, you would have to be conscious to perceive darkness. I mean, it's like, oh, there's nothing but darkness in a void, but you'd have to be conscious to perceive that.
It's interesting
it's a
how
silly thing, but
yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, I agree with you. It's interesting how it's like intentional choices will lead you to either life or death.
yeah,
It's like it's a choice regardless.
yeah,
And that's really what free will is all about. And a lot of people like to dismiss that and go, well, if you had free will, it's okay, Calvinistic predetermination, which basically means
Don't
you're
get David
gonna
started.
you're gonna do what you're gonna do, and it doesn't matter. But the reality is that's the entire point of free will. And I like to when speaking with people about it, one of the things I like to talk about is I go, okay, cool. So if your boyfriend loves you, right, that's good, right? Okay, cool. So if your boyfriend loves you and you walk around with him on a leash and he can never leave you, and every time he looks at another woman, you smack him in the head, does he actually love you, or is he just obedient?
Yeah.
And the reality is, assuming consenting, the reality is that in that situation, you don't know whether or not the person loves you because you haven't given them the opportunity to not love you. Without free will, love means nothing.
Amen.
And that's scary. That's why so many people are unhappy in relationships. Well, if you're controlling and overbearing, you never give that person the opportunity to do something else. And unfortunately, in a lot of relationships, at least my relationships, when given the opportunity, they did something. But if you give them that opportunity and they choose not to, then you are truly loved. Yeah. And that means so much more. And the reality is, if you created everything, wouldn't you want to know that they actually appreciated it and loved you rather than just are doing it because you said so?
Yeah. The more I live my life, the more I realize that the concept of, in quotes, the one, in terms of us guys finding the girl or a girl finding the guy, doesn't exist.
It doesn't.
I think it's all about timing, seasons, as well as like where you're at with the Lord, basically, and where your identity lies.
Yeah.
And whether those sync up with the other person during that specific time frame.
And so, wait, somebody else here married? Am I the only one married?
I think you're the only one married.
I'm the only one married, so I get to talk. Woo!
Go for it.
I'm an expert.
How long have you been married, Charles? 2 months.
No, I almost said
a complicated question.
I was gonna say complicated question. I believe that we are counting it as 2 years on October 13th of this year.
But in the eyes of the Lord,
in the eyes of the Lord, like 5 years is when I declared marriage. And then had to find a pastor that would do that and failed in doing so. But I have been with the same person for going on, it'll be 10 years coming up really soon.
Wow.
And so my personal belief is that you absolutely have someone, but at the same time, it's not like someone is just one person, because every experience you go through lends towards who you are and makes up what you are. And so the reality is that those experiences and those past people all add to that which is you and that which makes up yourself. And so, and like you said, it's the time of your life. It's the time of the season. When you come across that one person that fits you so perfectly and does everything so perfectly for you, you can still monk it up. It doesn't mean there won't be another one, but that is still the one that is perfect for you.
at that time.
At that time.
At that time, yeah.
It's the actual Murphy's Law. If it was supposed to go wrong, it would have, which Murphy's Law actually is a predeterminist law. There's nothing you can do. What's going to happen is going to happen. It gets twisted, but so many things do by modern culture. So, but
I wonder what the Bible says about that kind of concept. Not Murphy's Law, but specifically the idea of seasons, the idea of the one in quotes.
For everything, there is a season.
Well,
turn.
The thing is,
Time.
what the Bible records about like marriage and courtship in terms of like people finding other people, it's way easier than
people finding other people.
People help.
I
the
mean
people.
that's
People help the people.
Help
Sorry,
the
I just
people.
watched Fred
I don't know who you
Claus
are
and that
or where you
messed
are.
me up.
I will find you and I will marry you.
Yes.
But anyway, it really is, in the biblical narrative, it really is that simple. It's people finding other people.
Yep.
You have the Old Testament patriarchs, and basically they decided it was time to go find a wife.
And they found one for you.
So they went and found one, or they went and had their servant find one for them, or whatever, you know, or they just, or they came across someone, they liked the look of him, and they're like, that's the one I want to marry. And then,
3 cows later. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's just like,
I did actually
7 years
come
of
real
servitude
close
later.
to buying my wife's parents a goat. We were talking about this the other day. I came really close to buying my wife's parents a goat as a joke. But then I realized it was probably not a great idea. And it wouldn't have,
Like recently?
No, back in the day.
Back then?
Yeah,
Oh,
back in the
that's
day.
dope.
Just buy her a goat and be like, I found this. I thought
Just
it was
leave
cute.
it
Thought
there.
you might like it. And
Here's
just
your
not
dowry.
explain at all. Yeah.
Oh man. But well, I think about Jacob and how it's Jacob finding Rachel and that kind of thing. And his 7 years of servitude, and then he ends up with like 4 women and he has 12 sons, and it's like this guy wasn't the best guy I can imagine to be Israel, right? But God still used that for his greater plan. And even though he mucked it up at times for sure, and his father-in-law especially, God still used that for the greater purpose
Absolutely.
of his perfect will.
The thing is, there's a big difference between blaming God for the bad and understanding that no matter what it is, God is going to make it good.
Yeah.
I will use a recent car accident that I was in, unfortunately. And again, I'm sorry, babe. I totaled my wife's Jeep. Well, it's not my fault. I got rear-ended. I'm in California, so I kind of expected that at some point, and I genuinely upped my insurance for that specific purpose.
Whoa.
So the person had no insurance. And I'm pretty sure they were a stereotype if there ever was one. But the initial shock as well, that didn't go well. And, oh, this is a horrible situation. And I looked at Sid and I went, hey, it's okay. And she goes, well, and I was like, well, it's okay. God's going to turn this into a good thing. I don't know what's going to happen, but God's going to turn this into a good thing. Well, it turns out Jeep XJs in Idaho are like a $5,000 to $6,000 vehicle for a decent running one on the low side. Down here, they're a dime a dozen, and they never pass smog, and so they're worth about $1,500. So hopefully, Lord willing, we're going to go buy her one that I found on the internet that is the same model, the same year, the same color, with the same modifications, and only costs about half of what the insurance company just gave me to replace her vehicle, and has less miles and doesn't have some mild issues that I may have caused previously by tuning it.
Well, there you go. Yeah,
So-
I mean, that's Romans 8:28 right there.
Yes, exactly.
God causes all things to work together for the good of those who love him and are called according to his purpose. Like, we live in a broken, fallen world, so there's no guarantee of good in this world. So it doesn't make much sense to blame God for the bad stuff when the bad stuff is simply a consequence of living in this world that we created with our choices.
Free will.
But God, in his grace and his mercy, for those who belong to him through Jesus, he's going to work all those bad things out to good in the end.
Always.
Absolutely.
Amen.
David, I just realized your wallpaper on your browser is moving.
Yes, I was also. Is that what
Pretty
you
cool.
saw me staring at that? That's
Yeah, I was
awesome.
like, oh wait, hey, it is moving.
I thought perhaps my eyeballs were having an issue.
Yeah, your
That's cool.
your what's that game called? Shenmue background is beautiful.
Oh yeah, I recently installed Vivaldi on this computer because I was using Thorium, but it's been really having issues updating it. So I went for Vivaldi
Are you
instead.
saying you're out of nuclear power and you're for more carbon? So you're using Vivaldi, which is taking more
Team
resources?
Carbon!
Taking more resources on the computer?
Terraforming the planet.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. But I think, Charles, I think it's interesting you brought up that analogy of your Jeep. Because I would like to ask you one question, then I'll dive into what I want to get to with it. But why did you bring that up again? The story about the Jeep and God working on all the good.
We
of
were talking
those?
about everything, even things that could be considered a negative, work together for good because of what they lead to, because God takes the devils or evil spirits or the sin of the flesh, depending on circumstance, and turns it into something good, always.
Amen. Now, I want to take a specific part that you said where your Jeep in Idaho was very much highly valued, right?
Comparatively.
Comparatively to California. I would argue that sometimes that has to do, not geographically, we'll say, but I think that has to do sometimes with, with finding your significant other. I'd say you should go where you're valued. And
Exactly.
you shouldn't pursue somebody just for the sake of, hey, the idea of this is great and I can offer this up, which is a great thought. And you should go into a relationship of what you can give. However, I think you should go with somebody who does truly value you instead of the idea of, well, they'll eventually value me or they'll learn to
Or I
value
can
me.
fix them.
Or I can
And that
fix
comes
them.
under free will, too. If you're constantly trying to fix someone and tell them how they're messing up, then they don't have a lot of free will. They have a lot of obligation.
Yeah. And again, I'm not comparing women to cars, guys. Out there listening, I'm not doing that.
I'll make that comparison, but I do so with the full blessing of my beloved, who also has made that comparison.
As you look over to Billy.
Yes, I look at it like, hey.
But I just wanted to bring that up because, I don't know, it's something I've been praying about and thinking about a lot. And
Replacement
I think-
vehicles or women?
both.
Okay.
I need to get a new car.
Yeah.
But I think it is.
Not a new woman.
But I think that overall, I think it is like go where you are valued. Like
Absolutely.
That's why I go to That's why I, go to certain places or not go to certain places because I feel loved there, I feel valued there, or whatever. Whether you spend your time with family versus friends or what's better or worse for you, go where you're valued.
That makes
is
a
what
lot
I
of
would
sense.
say.
Yeah.
Also, bring God to it. Right? Make him, give it
center.
to him. Make him the center.
Center.
Center. Well, speaking about center, this is a really interesting place. I don't know where to go with it, Billy. Do you
I
want to
set him up excellently for it.
Yeah.
Like 25
I mean, all the talk
minutes
about-
ago.
All the talk about
great
free
tirade.
will and
free will.
predetermination, or is there free will? Are we all just
I've seen the
programmed
movie. He gets out at the end.
Are we all just programmed by Nazis?
Ooh, okay. Expound, my dear sir.
Okay, so my claim and my belief is that I don't know if the viewers have played or been exposed to the recent phenomenon. Well, now recent phenomenon of Cyberpunk 2077 with the anime and stuff, exemplifying the story behind it. When the game first came out, rough start, but now people are really starting to appreciate it. And the director, the writer of the book, who created the story, is actually, fun fact, it was actually a role-playing game.
Yep.
He made it for a role-playing game, and some of the characters in that game are actually people's characters. Like, I think a lot of them are. Most of
really?
them
Like the characters in the game, the
are
video
people's
game,
role-playing characters.
from playing the role-playing game.
Yes.
Really?
That's why they're so complex and well-written. It's because it was an
Interesting.
organic
That makes sense.
evolution.
That's so dope.
That makes sense
Yeah.
how you have different personalities that are so entirely, like, intrinsically completely different, but
Yes.
still by the same writer.
So my bold claim is that we are already in a dystopian future. I think we were talking about living in a fallen, broken world. Well, the hyper-consumeristic nature that we're heading towards with AI technology and like I mentioned before, just the amount of spoil we have and take for granted compared to what our ancestors had to do in the past. I mean, our 2 people ago. We're talking the 1800s, 2 people ago.
Yep.
But how quickly we've moved forward, and how we've taken something that would have been absolutely mind-blowing to our grandparents and our great-grandparents, and they would have not even known how to wrap their head around it, and just gone, after a while, because we grew up with it. You look at the new generation, and they grew up with all this fast internet, and everything's instant and instant gratification, and this kind of cesspool of sin that we find ourselves going into. But the game resonated so much with me because I'm like, oh my God, this is where we're going. It's hyper consumeristic. You're completely bombarded by ads every single part of the game. Like you go into the elevator, it's ads. You open your phone, it's ads. At the bathroom, ads. I mean, everything is ads, and they follow you too. It's like Blade Runner. Into the dystopian future, like Blade Runner, that type of thing. But and I was kind of like thinking about it, and it led me one way or another to a topic that I got very passionate about 10 years ago in my early hippie stages of the early 20s.
Oh, man.
About the school system, and I hated school. I was fresh out of high school, and I hated school, and I thought it was absolute crud that I had to go through all that, and I didn't feel like I learned a lot. And I did some research, and it turns out, it's not really for free thinking, and it comes back to Nazis. So basically, the premise of it is that, and this is history, you guys can look it up. It goes back to Prussia, which is modern day Germany, and their fight with Napoleon. And so there was basically the Prussian army were very, very effective fighters. They were very, very lethal fighters, free thinking fighters. Each individual Prussian fighter could operate singularity, as just a force. They were hand-to-hand combat. They were, long marksmen. They were amazing fighters, but they got their butts absolutely handed to them by the Napoleonic army. And so a couple, I don't know if he was in the military or not. He probably was, but he basically was trying to figure out why they got their butts whooped so bad by Napoleon. And they ended up coming up with, and you can see in his manuscripts, his breakdown, he goes to France and he sees the school system in France in the Napoleonic era. And it basically is, he was wondering why they were able to just stand up and get shot. Like they were just, that was where like the lines were coming from, you know, like where they had the volley lines, I think is what they called them, Charles. Was it volley lines? Where they like shot, they ducked down, they muzzle load or...
Sure.
Okay. But...
That's one thing you could call them. Yeah,
Volley lines.
But...
are you talking like the 1806 Prussian War?
Yes.
Where Napoleon just pounced all over him?
Oh, horrible. Okay. Yeah, horrible. And so they ended up going to the school system, and he found that they were indoctrinating the youth into a ultra hyperistic, like nationalistic mindset, where they were basically saying, like, I don't know if you guys ever played sports, but I came from a really, really football heavy place, and there was one point where we were on our way to a game, and I was like, "This is the enemy." Mm-hmm. Like it was so hyped up, and it was so that what do they call it? Not social conditioning.
Not conditioning.
It's where you're in a crowd and you act differently than you would. Mob mentality. Yeah. And it was like, this is the enemy. I'm going to hurt them. You know, and so they grew up with that, and it made the perfect soldiers. And so they were able to, for king and country, die for their beliefs, whereas the Prussian army was individualistic and like, hey, we'll retreat to fight another day. You know, we're trying to win the war. We're not trying to get our heads blown off here. And so he was like, okay, well, I'm going to bring that back. So he brought that back to the Prussian, which is now Germany. And I think his name was Johann Fritz, I think was his name. I might be wrong on that. It's Johann something. It's Fritz. It's not Fitzgerald. It's Fritz something. He brought that back and created the school system there and started doing very strict, like commanding style education, where basically the kids were like, sit down, shut up, listen to the indoctrination that we're giving you. Don't ask questions. You have to raise your hand to go to the bathroom. There's bells. There's starting to sound familiar, like anybody who's attending public school systems.
Yeah. And it was more scary too because he's in a German accent.
The German accent, yeah, exactly. And so his viewpoints ended up inspiring a man with a very scary mustache. So he turns out that way of teaching the
with
youth.
An art major.
Because, there's a couple of really famous people, I can't remember their names right now, but they said the way to sculpt the future is through our children. You know, like
George Orwell.
Yes, yeah. We can mold their minds into whatever you want. It's a Play-Doh. You can mold it into whatever you want. And so that evil man was the one that, took that, and he's touted as the spiritual successor or the spiritual father of basically the Third Reich is Johann Fritz. And Hitler just kind of carried out the plan, essentially. But so fast forward or hop over to America, and we have some really rich people like the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers that they're passionate about education and educating the normal folk. And so what they do is they go, well, we want to standardize teaching, because before that, there was many schools, and the school districts actually served a purpose of like basically where you were at, you learned about what there was to do.
Are you saying that living in the middle of the country, I don't need to know how to cross at a four-way intersection when there aren't any that don't have stoplights?
No, you wouldn't, Charles.
What? That's
crazy. You would probably not have to learn how to tie a boat anchor if you lived in Wyoming either.
They have a nice river, though.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah.
But
that freezes.
He wanted to standardize couple families wanted to standardize this education system, and they're like, well, we want to know how to. I think it was Turk and another gentleman. They sent off to the rest of the world to see how, because we're developing. Huh?
Turk and JD, right?
To see, I think it was. I don't know. It was basically to send them out because we're a developing nation. We wanted to become strong like these other nations. So they sent them out, and they ended up in Germany. And they ended up seeing this doctrine where they're like, oh, okay, these people could produce really like obedient, non-free thinking society. We don't really need soldiers because we've already got enough American nationalism to like go around, but we need workers. We need people because we're going through our industrial revolution. Ford started opening his factory. The assembly line started coming out, and they're like, we want workers. And Rothschild and the Rothschilds and the mostly not Roosevelt's, Rockefellers. Thank you. We're like, well, I don't want free thinking, individualistic people. I want workers. So they spent a ton of money on private universities in their school system. Yale, UC Irvine, and all these like other places gave billions of dollars to these schools to fund and to teach, to spread this indoctrination. And so I'm sure this is going to be traumatic for some people who didn't have a good time in high school, but I've always wondered, why did the schools always my school was gray and there's a lot of chain link fence and cold chairs and, like chained windows, and there's bells that tell you when to do what, and you can only go to the bathroom if you raise your hand. You can't just get up and use the bathroom if you need to. And I always thought it was this weird kind of, internment camp type feel in school. Turns out I wasn't wrong for feeling that way. But, so they created this basically mentality through, it only takes one generation, by the way. They said just one generation of this indoctrination. It's so good that you only need one generation to go through it to change everything, to change the free thinking. Because prior to that, we had kids children are so naturally inquisitive creatures. We're one of the most brilliant, and fast learning creatures there are on this planet. I mean, these kids, think about how a kid will learn a language without going to school. Just by hearing it, will learn your language. Like, how incredible is that? But they took it. They didn't want people to think like that. They wanted people to believe what they wanted to believe and think what they wanted to think. And so you had to ask these questions, and it basically made you dependent on asking if this is okay to do. So you had to ask the teacher if it's okay to do whatever, and you had to believe what they were teaching. So it creates a what is it? I think it was somebody said, it was last name Mann, first name Horace. Horace Mann was the director of the GED or GEB, which is the government something education bureau or whatever. And he basically said, we're going to raise your kids. There's a famous quote of him saying, we'll be the father to your kids. And that made me think, like, there's only one father. Mm-hmm. And you also get the separation of school and God around this time as well, keeping God out of the schools, sort of becoming kind of, as time moved on, a big narrative. And it's to serve the machine. They don't want you to, talk about God in school. They can talk about all the other religions, but not Christianity. And the one time you learn about Christianity, it's about the Crusades. It's a very brief. I remember the
in a negative sense too.
Yeah, I remember the chapter about the Crusades was literally a page and a half long in my history book, and then it went on to like other religions and stuff like that. And I'm like, wow. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's just the most important doctrine ever written by man, and it has had, and whether you're religious or not, has had a huge impact on society in general.
This country,
the world as a whole. But basically, that was the start of it, and it all, they took basically a Nazi propagandist indoctrination and created our school systems through that. And you can look this up too, please do if you feel inclined, all the professors of these universities that were springing up had to speak Prussian.
Dang.
Every single one of them learned Prussian because they had to read the book and they had to speak. And so they all knew German, essentially. Yeah.
And I thought that modern day, Chinese professors that are coming over from China in our universities and funding our universities was an issue. Turns out it was a bigger issue before.
Yeah.
All the way back at 1843, apparently.
So much so, I mean, you think about World War II, and we definitely did not kill all of the bad Nazi scientists that were experimenting on humans. We took them and used them because That's what we do.
That's
Got
what
them
we do.
jobs at NASA.
Yeah.
Yep. They
And so
gave
it's-
us space, the
And it
further
just
creation
creates
of diesel engines.
this narrative, this indoctrination creates the perfect consumer.
Yeah.
yeah.
Because you think about our society, and it kind of goes into everything. You could go into the modern day social issues that we're running into of identity crisis and all these other things, and happiness and affording, like BlackRock coming out and saying that you'll own nothing and be happy, recently. And
Yeah.
then fast forward to 2077, I'm pretty sure we're going to be having robotic arms and
I mean, we kind of
mercenaries,
already do.
and I just really hope there's flying cars because I'm really
Flying cars would be fun.
I'm extremely bummed that we don't have the flying cars.
the big
Like, I
cities are
feel
cool
shit.
too. If all cities look like Tokyo, I'd be cool with that. But other than that, it seems like a pretty dystopian future to me.
Yeah, honestly, it's kind of sad when you think about it. Like society is basically one giant Ouroboros,
Yeah.
the lizard eating its own tail. It's because we consume, which drives production, which drives more consumption, which drives more production.
Yeah, it's
the
never
system
enough.
the system isn't sustainable. At some point, if we don't change course, it's going to crash.
Yeah, and it kind of makes me think of an example. I have these two friends that moved to Morro Bay, California, and it's this beautiful spot next to the beach, except when the draft hits you wrong because there's the septic treatment plants in the middle of the town. Anyways, other
Good
than that,
infrastructure.
yeah, it's got a really cool rock. But they were so excited to move there, and I got to see them. I'm like, oh wow, ooh, ah, and I'm looking around, and they go, wow, you almost forget that you live in a pretty place. It just becomes normal. Kind of like that,
Desensitization.
Desensitization, yeah, where you don't know what you have. And, you can, like I said, go to the grocery store and get something from a foreign country we've literally went to war over spices and salt not too long ago. I mean, a couple people ago, we were fighting over spices, tea, and was started throwing tea in our harbor started our friggin' country.
Now we can get an energy drink in 1 day shipping on Amazon.
Yeah, exactly. Droned to
Droned to
That's
you.
what I'm saying. Cyberpunk, man. Like we're getting, and then the AI, and now they have the Tesla bots and stuff. I mean, it's just a matter of time. And where does your faith lie? Are you worshiping these things? Are you worshiping the true creator?
Well, and the thing with modern society, if I can piggyback off there, the thing with modern society, like you said, is entirely based around consumerism, and in that, a need to never be satisfied.
What do you worship?
Never be satisfied. You're never not polluting enough.
Yeah.
You're never having the best thing. It's the classic keeping up with the Joneses. And the ironic thing recently is with that air quote move to minimalism that's been going on, you end up with a lust after less stuff.
Yeah.
And the thing that a lot of people miss is lusting after something can go either direction. You are equally lusting after owning more things as you are owning over less things. Because the reality is, if you're that upset about owning things, get rid of them.
Yeah.
Don't lust over having less stuff.
Yeah.
Just get rid of your stuff. And it's my opinion that God gives you what you need.
Yeah.
There's a really interesting thing happening in the gaming space in the similar theme of that, where people I follow at least are saying how get unplugged, take a break from things.
Yeah.
It's almost common now.
Yeah. And there's also an aspect of, I always equate it to intentionality.
Yeah.
And you should be intentional with your media consumption. That's what that's what we started talking about actually with the podcast, was media consumption and being intentional with that. Because when you do that as a teenager, as a young man or a young woman, whoever you are, and being intentional with your media consumption, it helps you practice that so you can be intentional in other areas of your life, whether it be health or relationships or what have you, even your relationship with God. And intentionality is everything. And and the Bible teaches that, especially.
Moderation in all things.
Moderation in all things. And
Not limiting, moderation. Big difference between the two.
Yes. And it's interesting because this Horace Mann dude, I'm just going to call him that, Horace Mann dude.
Yeah.
He had a quote here. I'm not capable enough, my brain activity is not capable enough to comprehend this, but I want to read this to you guys and see what you think, because it says, this quote, and he has this from Wikipedia, but this was a quote from him. It says, "Our system earnestly," he's a very secular guy, by the way.
Yes.
He says, "Our system earnestly incalculates all Christian morals. It founds its morals based on religion. It welcomes the religion of the Bible, and in receiving the Bible, it allows it to do what it is allowed to do in no other system, to speak for itself." But then he continues. He says this, "But here it stops, not because it claims to have compassed all truth, but because it disclaims to act as an umpire between hostile religious opinions." What does that mean? I just don't have the brain capacity to analyze that.
Yeah, I don't either.
But I think he's basically...
I'm actively trying to find a quote so I can read
Horace
it because I
Mann's-
don't hear
Go
as
to
fast as I
Horace
read.
Mann Wikipedia page. It's under secular nature, education reform.
Real quick, while he's looking that up,
Yeah.
one thing I find very interesting about the secularization of America, we're very much allowed this to happen because the U.S. government was founded with a secular framework.
Yeah.
Like the actual moral principles that our country is based on are Christian moral principles, but the framework, the legal framework of the Constitution itself is secular. And the really interesting thing about that is that's facilitated our decline, and yet it's really an unfortunate side effect. It's nothing more than an unfortunate side effect. It wasn't an intentional thing, because what secularism was actually supposed to do was to combat the sectarian conflict that was happening during that time period.
Yeah.
So over in Europe, you had the Catholic Church was dominant for a long time, right?
Yeah.
And then the Protestant Reformation happened, and all of a sudden, people of various Christian sects were fighting wars against each other.
Yeah.
And so you had all these
So we get the Protestants versus
Protestants
whoever,
versus
Tudors.
the Catholics,
Yeah.
Protestants versus other Protestants. You know, it's just a big mess. And so you have all these different, mostly Protestant, some Catholics, but mostly Protestant groups, distinct Protestant groups coming to America to escape that. And the solution that they came upon in order for them to be able to live with one another in relative peace was secularism. And unfortunately, what that did was it allowed room for ideologies to come in and basically slowly turn our moral foundation over on itself so that it could be used to drive us into the corrupt state that we are today. So I just find that super interesting, that something that was originally designed to allow us to be a Christian society made up of multiple different Protestant groups ended up being our downfall.
But I think it comes down to, too, is that we have this innate need to follow something, I think. And whether it be, God and Christ as God commands it, or to follow, we are the sheep. Truly, we are the sheep, and who is our shepherd? Is it the school system? Is it the sect that you belong to? Is it the technology that you're enveloped in every day and you can't put down? You wake up and the first thing you see is a blue light in your face because you don't even think about it anymore. It just becomes part of life. And that integration, that that transcendence into the technology era where we are constantly just, and it's such a new part that we've never had, or have we? With the older civilizations, who knows? But this might be our second or third time around. But we definitely probably didn't make it. I don't think, if that's
We didn't make it to Blu-rays yet.
I do believe there was a big flood. And
Yeah,
we may
that
not know
might be-
how far we made it.
Yeah.
I think I got rid of all the ancient Blu-rays.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about it, We've gone all the way back to emojis
That's
now.
what
and everything's
SanDiscs
on
are?
rocks.
I'm just kidding.
The tablets.
But yeah, like we're in this unprecedented era of new discovery through technology, and we just had the side note. We just had the quantum computer. That I don't know what theory or the question it solved that was going to take all the world's supercomputers.
Yeah, Google's supercomputer AI computer. It took like 15 minutes, I think.
15 minutes, but it was supposed to take to the end of the time
To solve.
5 trillion years or something like that would have solved for the world's current supercomputers. I mean, okay, so that just unlocked, and now what's going to come next? And we have
Willow.
yeah. And what comes next? And I'm sure, as humanity oftentimes does, the medical leaps and the good things that, like you was talking about, God taking something evil and making something good out of it. The good things, I'm sure there will be plenty of good things, but it's just, who are you worshiping? Who is your God, and what is your intent? Are you using this thing to escape the reality that you've trapped yourself in, or are you using it to bring glory to God?
I mean, that makes sense. In that too, though, there's that built-in thing. Like, I don't know if you guys have noticed, but a lot of people on the interwebs, as you kids say, on the interwebs have turned the net, AOL,
World Wide
on
Web.
AOL.
Yeah, but the World Wide Web. Yes.
A lot of y'all youngins have been, there's a lot more Christianity going around on the internet. But at the same time, and that's where this quote is, I think that's a part of what this quote is talking about, is there's a difference between religious truth and the truth of the Bible and Christian faith, which is faith more so in the specific sex, which is, again, from the quote
This is a quote from Horace Mann.
Horseman.
Horseman.
In following the different sects from the Horseman of Christianity and following what they say versus the actual religious truth on which the morality and the corruption and everything else are based on. And it's really interesting to see, because there's some validity in the thought process that maybe the law and the school shouldn't specify between those, because that's how you end up with a crusade. But at the same time, the Bible is the law, and so the law does already specify. You have man's law versus the biblical law. And it gets it's very hard for people when they're not properly versed and properly educated with critical thinking to even arrive at religious truth in the first place. They think they do because they read somebody else's somewhere, and ironically, a lot of the Horseman's quotes there are extremely good and well thought through and definitely well intentioned, but that doesn't necessarily make what ends up happening correct.
Yeah, it's interesting. Going back to what you were saying, David, about the framework of, framework of secularism of our country, basically, and how we all get along. It's interesting how that is true, but our judicial system is based on the morals of the Bible, basically. And it's interesting how we've been able to apply that there, but also taking God out of the schools and taking God out of everything else. So I don't know, it's just interesting when you think about it.
And it's a problem with science. And I'm going to use a Terry Pratchett quote that I know Bill hates when I quote it, but I'm going to use a Terry Pratchett quote that I think, although the context is wrong, the quote itself is so amazing, which is, if you take and dismiss the advertisement that pops up the second I start trying to get the quote correctly.
Cyberpunk 2077.
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
I'll
just prove what you said right now. You take the universe and grind it down to the finest powder and sieve it through the finest sieve, and then show me one atom of justice, one molecule of mercy. And yet there's some right ideal order in the world. There's some rightness in the universe by which it may be judged. And so if you take the truth, religious truth, out of it, there's no way to prove what righteous actually is, what justice actually is. There's no way to prove who's being judged in what direction. So by removing Christianity from the school, you become the person who defines those terms, you being the man, as it were, become the person who defines those terms. And with that, you control the general mindset of what they actually are, regardless of what the country was based on. If you don't know what it means to be right or righteous, as the full word is, or to be lackadaisical or lazy, as the short word is, if you don't know what those mean, then how could you possibly do the correct thing?
Yes.
Fascinating.
Yes.
Dramatic.
Yes.
Yes, I'm totally curl mustache. Yes.
You know, the funny thing is, though, is as far as we've declined, there are glimmers of hope I see.
Yes, of course.
One really big milestone was, of course, the overturning of Roe v. Wade.
Yes.
Terrible decision. Even Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the abortion champion herself, did not agree with the legal foundation of that ruling. She thought that if there was ever going to be a case made for a constitutional right for a woman to have an abortion, then it would have to be based on some other principle other than that.
Yep.
And so, in a way, there are glimmers of hope that the system is still capable of correcting itself, I think.
Yeah.
One of those. So it's like we talk about, like, the inevitable decay of humanity and civilization, all that. But it's like, I'm not saying things are going to get better in the short term necessarily, but I believe there's hope for the future.
Yeah, and I see that. I was a Viner, because Vine is way better than TikTok. I'm just gonna say put that out onto the entire internet. Vine was so much better.
Dude,
than
I was
TikTok.
going through a compilation the other day.
Yeah.
I'm like, God, these were awesome.
And
man.
I had so many followers on Vine. I have barely any on TikTok. So poo on TikTok.
Oh, you
It's
poor
totally
thing.
the algoritm's fault, not my own. But
It's not like you're 30-something and mildly unrelatable to teenagers that have all day to
yeah,
scroll on
exactly. But I've seen a revival of faith-based kids, because I think that we got so far away from the doctrines that feel good and
the
true.
ping-ponging of society.
Exactly.
That's consistent across all society. The ping-ponging of society between two complete polar opposite beliefs. It doesn't matter what topic it is. You pick a topic. I'll point out the last time it ping-ponged.
Yeah.
That's the way society works. Is it bounces between
you
extremes.
go so far in one direction, you can come back center or go to the other side. And I like I said previously, and I think this has been touched on multiple times in this podcast so far, is that we are sheep. We inherently thrive to follow something, to seek understanding of the universe, to draw some purpose from this experience that we're all sharing in. And I feel like we in the last 10 years, and it was interesting because I was an adult coming into this. I was freshly graduating high school, and there was no labels back then. The big narrative is why do you got to put a label on it? In 2012, it was
why you got to label me?
Why you got to label it, man?
I don't want to be your girlfriend. Can't we just be?
Yeah, well, I mean, that kind of led to the next 10 years, but we didn't look at each other as different. It was just like, hey, let's just vibe together. Let's go kick it, is what we used to say. And
you kids and you're kicking it. What are you kicking?
Yeah, but
what is it? Why do you have to kick it? That's so violent.
Yeah, you want to come over to my crib and kick it, is what we used to say. But not kick the crib. That'd be messed up.
I'm gonna come back at your house and just start kicking things. Like, I'm kicking it, bro.
But yeah, you see this in the youth now.
The youth.
That we went so far away from the things that are truly important, that truly fulfill our souls, and the only thing that can fulfill our soul is God. But we went so far away from that. We removed ourselves and made ourselves our own God, that now there's 2,000 people getting baptized in LA, of all places, the devil's playground. I mean, how prophetic is that? And then TikTok has some very promiscuous sides to it, but it also has some very good sides to it too. And I've seen live broadcasts and famous creators who have millions of followers, and you think like how powerful it is. I mean, your brother is a pastor, and I mean, it seems like you're of the same lineage because you're very well spoken and very well into the Bible, which is good.
Brothers from the same lineage?
Whoa, weird. Same laugh too. It's really interesting, but
yeah, that one.
yeah, but you see this influence. You think of a pastor and their small flock, like, the town we're from, and the influence that has. But multiply that and the technology that we have to millions of people all the way across the world. And I mean, evangelical what? You're doing some serious evangelical work.
Yeah.
Just by someone just scrolling and they hear 6 seconds of the gospel.
It's almost like God takes things that were designed with poor intent or have turned into something with poor intent and uses it for a better purpose.
What?
Yeah.
I feel like there's a ringing in my ear. I feel like I
Yeah,
just heard that not too long ago.
I think it's interesting too because, back to Romans 8:28 as well, where you also think of how God has used the internet. I mean, Jesus used parables.
Yeah.
There's a reason why he used parables. There's stories to get the message across.
Storytelling.
And that's why I think it's really important for us as Christians who follow the faith to really pursue that to the best of our capabilities. If you're called to, not everybody's called to do it, but you're called to serve the Father in your own unique way.
That's the most important part.
And utilize your gifts, which he has given you, and utilize them well. I think that's the key. I think what I'm kind of getting to is individualism and how the concept of the Prussians taking that and applying the Napoleonic education system to theirs, and then that eventually leading to Nazis.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting because the individualistic society, when you look at it, as you were describing it, was more about preserving the self
Yeah.
versus fighting for king and country.
Yeah,
basically,
for greater
which
good,
is the
quote
greater
unquote.
good in quotes. I think it's really because I would say, obviously because of my faith and upbringing, individualistic and growing up on a farm.
Yeah.
You're very individualistic in general. Also, I was one of 6 kids, so you kind of had to be.
Yeah.
So that's just part of the course. But I think it's valuable and I think that's what kind of going back to the gaming discussion, what people are learning is the value of that, to be intentional, to not just, because I've been working with so many, because I work in a college environment and there's so many people that come in and they're just like, okay, what do I do next? I'm like, well, you got to figure it out. You got to critically think here.
Yeah.
I can't just tell you what to do. Like you got to look, I tell them, Google it. YouTube it, go on there and figure it out. Like the way I learned Adobe Premiere Pro is I clicked on a 7-hour tutorial, but I only watched 3.5 hours of it because that's all I needed. I didn't need to watch the rest 4 hours because that was too advanced for me. I just got what I needed and learned it. That's what you got to do. And so I think with all this Blade Runner and the free will that we have, I think people are starting to realize that. And the ping-ponging, back to your discussion, Charles, is that people are desiring authentic things in an inauthentic age.
Yes.
Yes.
And I think it's really fascinating and cool to see the last 10 years of the cultural shift from one side to the next. And especially when you look at politics, but if you look at the culture side of things and the effect that people have had on the culture, it's interesting to see the ping-ponging back and forth. And now we're seeing it again with, the quotes, woke right stuff and that kind of thing.
And it's very interesting to look at that.
Very interesting.
And I think part of that comes from the fact that we're just hitting adulthood, is how I'm going to word that. We're becoming adults finally. And one thing that I learned, so my focus in college was anthropology and dead languages. I did a full forensic anthropology and minoring in dead languages.
Oh, so you're the next Wes Hoff over here.
I was a big fan of Indiana Jones as a kid, and I figured, hey, I could do that. And then I became a mechanic instead. But the interesting thing on that is that if you look at history, that's how everyone always feels, always. And so, currently we are in that feeling that cycle is always where we are. Somewhere in that cycle of one way and then leaning the other way. And people are always desiring that authenticity and that yearning for that which we don't understand and for that comfort and that original thing. They think back and go, oh, that was so much better. It's that classic nostalgia and the desiring of one's youth. And the Bible provides so many of those answers for people who don't know where else to turn for that, because the reality is that hole you're trying to fill is God.
Yep.
Yeah.
And technology wants to try to fill that hole, and technology and big conglomerates all want to fill that hole with consumerism and edit the history so it seems like that that hole can be or has been filled, and that it's worse now or better now, depending on where you're at, than it ever has been. So you got to edit the history too.
I'm sorry, when you said big conglomerates, you pointed to David. I know you're pointing to him because of his discussion.
Yes.
But you kept pointing, you pointed to him, and then you moved on, and I was like looking at him. And I said, "Are you a big conglomerate, David?"
Oh my God, he's a plant.
Oh my God!
Aren't we?
Get him out of here!
Aren't we all really giant conglomerates of cells anyway?
There's a sovereign state joke / discussion in there somewhere.
Or an AOI one, which we'll get to.
I always used to joke around and tell people, I was like, yeah, we're just weird, upright, talking mushrooms on a planet that's spiraling through space. Nothing makes sense.
Yeah. It was so funny. I have a conspiracy. There's people at my work that knew we were going to talk about this stuff tonight because the first discussion at work this morning was what cloud seeding was. And David was going to talk about climate change. So I'm like, is there something
I think that's
going
the
on?
algorithm. I think because that was on my algorithm
really? Is that
too.
what's
Cloud
going on?
seeding. And it went through
especially
Jeremy
with the
Clarkson.
fog recently
It was like
in
a
California.
footage of Jeremy Clarkson in Sweden with the cloud. They literally had the cloud seeding facility.
Yeah.
I think that's the algorithm, man.
I mean, it's a real thing. It's just it's one of those things. It's a conspiracy theory, but it's not a conspiracy theory. That's what I was saying. I was having trouble trying to come up with a legitimate conspiracy theory because I run into the problem of, well, it's not a conspiracy theory. It's just a thing that people are that's happening.
Yeah.
You know, like, oh, we cloud seed. Yes. No one has ever said we didn't. I don't understand.
And it's expensive.
Yeah,
That's why we don't do it a
very
whole lot.
expensive. Yeah. Let me just dump aluminum in the atmosphere.
Well, speaking of individualism and all the such we're talking about, let's go to the AI thing, which is me next. But before we head there, any final talks of, I don't know, education and what they prepared us for the next 50 years? What are they preparing us for now? As an ending question.
I mean, if you've read George Orwell's 1984, I think there's an unfortunately true scenario. Because the reality is the more they control, the more they can sell. And of course, they in the conspiracy theorist sense of the man, so to speak. And
Subscribe to
like and
life.
subscribe, yeah. But the more
Pay
they can
the
sell
fee.
you, yeah, the more they can sell you, the more experiences they can give you, the more things they can tell you, the more control they have, and the more they can convince you that's normal or real or authentic, as you said, in a world where that's completely inauthentic. I mean, artificial intelligence is artificial, although one could argue there's a lot of people walking around with artificial intelligence.
Back on the gaming discussion really quick. I think there was one video that popped up on my feed today where this guy I follow said, literally the title was talking about being content. In the age of 800 plus game Steam libraries and all this kind of stuff. Yeah. It's like being content with what you have. I thought that was really interesting. And he talks about going back and playing retro stuff just to get your mind out of the craziness of today.
Yeah.
Really interesting. David, do you have anything to end this bad education topic?
No.
Conspiracy.
I think
what are they preparing us for?
I think they haven't they've basically given us the playbook.
Yes.
Klaus Schwab said you'll own nothing and be happy.
Yeah.
Do
you think they're going to sell it as individualism with transcendence into AI?
The illusion of free will.
Always, yeah.
Yeah, they're going to sell it I think they're going to sell it the way they always have. It's just they're going to make it appeal to whatever base instinct they can grab a hold of, because people desire certain things, right? Food, shelter, community, comfort, certain basic needs that have to be met. So really they're just going to sell it to us in whatever way using whatever need or desire they think they can grab onto, because the way the climate thing is sold is like people have this fear of the future, right? They don't know what's going to happen. And so basically they're selling this whole green energy, renewable stuff based on people's fear of the future,
Trying to combat the fear with whatever their product is.
Yeah.
This will make it better. Yeah.
One could say they were fear seeding instead of cloud seeding.
I was speaking about fear. Let's get into AI. So I wrote a whole bunch of stuff here, but I'll just start with this. The concept is this. There seems to be a huge correspondence between AI and spiritual forces, going back to the Bible here. From people talking to AI chatbots while those were still in beta and conversing with them and getting them to admit they are from the unseen realm, to other examples of AI drawing from demonology and other apocrypha when describing themselves, the AI itself. There's an idea from Asimov called Ghosts in the Machines that made me think about this, where the basic idea is robot/AI becomes sentient and they're capable of things beyond the original programming. There's also the idea of that if they are hosts for something, can they host that certain thing though? And then I kind of want to read this like excerpt from this dissertation I found about AI and spirituality, which is actually our 6th episode's topic with the debut of Thad on our podcast. But basically it's like it says here, AI enters this theological conversation in several profound ways. First, AI raises questions about human uniqueness. If transcendence positions humans as special bearers of divine image, what happens when we create entities that simulate consciousness? Some theologians suggest AI highlights the unique transcendent qualities that remain distinctly human, moral agency, spiritual awareness, while others worry about erosion of human exceptionalism. I want to take that real quick and chew on it. What do you guys think about the transcendence? If transcendence positions humans as special bearers of divine image, and what happens when we create entities that simulate consciousness?
Well, one thing I think is that, we're creations of a creative God, right? And he made us like him. Like Genesis said, let us create man in our image after our likeness. He's not talking about visual representation there. He's talking about fundamental identity. So we have in us the potential to create. The thing is, though, is because of our sin nature, because of our fundamental fallibility as humans, the things that we create are going to reflect that. So as we go into this drive that we have as humans to try and give life, so to speak, to these machines that we've created, it would behoove us to stop and think what can go wrong, because yeah, it's like
Skynet.
we're human, we're fallible. Yeah. It's like we're never going to create like living beings that are just like, are just like us and can be like moral agents just like us. We're always going to create something lower, more corrupt than ourselves.
Copy of a copy.
Yeah, exactly. So the more energy we try and invest in creating something just like us, the more potential there is for things to go wrong.
There's such a great example of that too in the early chat programs. That's why it was always so effed up and always doing messed up things. And a lot of people don't realize, well, back in ye old days when they were first programming it, and trying to get it to learn a human language for human language model, the only thing they had available that had enough data was the Enron emails because they're public data. So genuinely Google this, guys. The only data point that was available that had enough just normal conversation stuff that wasn't handwritten or forced was the Enron data emails that were released as part of the lawsuit, the corruption and the failure of Enron. So the very early human language models had such a messed up view of life because of what they were programmed on. It was literally these emails by higher ups and people that themselves were extremely corrupted, obviously, which is why they went to jail. So when you create a copy and you talk about morality and spiritual awareness, when you create a copy of something, what you use to create that copy has such a integral part of it. And how are you going to only put the good when we ourselves are so flawed? And like I said, that's such a great example of, and you could really tell the point at which they stopped using that, because all of a sudden, like I don't remember if it was ChatGPT or Google, the one that did that. All of a sudden, overnight, it got better, and everyone's like, "Wow, the new version's great!" It's because they used all the people's email that agreed to the terms and service instead of a bunch of corporate emails that were used as part of a court case involving corruption.
Interesting.
So they switched it, and all of a sudden, it understood human language slightly better and wasn't constantly telling you to do perverse stuff or, make shady deals in the back room. It's all on what you base it on.
And to go,
AI is just us, so what are you feeding it?
And it's interesting because 10 years ago, back in like 2014, 15, there's a lot of talk in the tech community about de-Googling yourself. Get rid of Google, get rid of all this, separate yourself from these databases that are harvesting your data because you are the product. Yeah. I remember following tech stuff and like learning how to build a computer and everything. And those guys who did all those podcasts and taught you how to build computers on YouTube were big into that. Like, hey, against Google, against all this other stuff. Facebook especially. Oh my God.
Well, still, yeah.
Yeah, still, yeah, definitely. And the kind of anti-consumer nature of those companies, and you are the product, and they're stealing you and using your identity and information to build databases. And then we got to this point in the discussion of these databases, of what are these databases used for? Like, what bad thing could happen? At the time, we're like, imagine if China hacked all those data servers from Facebook and learned everybody's information, even though it's all public anyway.
Yeah.
Or whatever, what have you. Now it's like these data, this massive data of human consciousness or bots or whatever is now. Where does it go? How do we analyze all that information? Well, it's AI. And I remember them reading articles about 10 years ago, them training AI models and figuring out how they can work and how to utilize it. And I remember at the time, that was the talk in 2016 is what, AI is being trained in the background. And I was listening to a podcast during that time, and they were talking about exactly what we are going through right now. They were talking about, the AI is going to be used for this. You're going to see Danny DeVito play every character in Lord of the Rings in an AI-created video. Yeah. And it's going to be great. And now we're
Everyone
basically
called it.
there.
It wasn't hard to see where that was going. I mean, it's a tool.
Yeah.
I feel like AI is a tool, just like any other tool, how you use it.
But it was trained on the data that they've harvested over the last 15 plus, 20 plus years now.
Yeah.
Which is crazy to think.
Yeah.
And everything that's happened in history during that time.
I mean,
history in general.
There was a couple people, big celebrities, who actually sold their likeness recently to AI corporations, so that they're like, I think one was, Ian McKellen might have, because
that sounds right.
His voice, but it was under the context that it was educational and yada yada yada, so he could do like nature documentaries and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, also James Earl Jones's estate sold it to Disney.
That's why they can continue using his voice as Darth Vader.
Yeah. You guys see the Fortnite videos?
Yeah.
It's great.
Exactly. But yeah, I could see the danger. Going back, what was the original question?
I got it right here.
Just so I'm answering directly.
Yeah, no worries. I got it listed here. I got to scroll up.
Sorry to interrupt the flow.
No, you're fine. If transcendence positions humans as special bearers of divine image, so it puts us in a certain place. What happens when we create entities that simulate consciousness, that can simulate created in our own image?
So I think the danger with that could be because, as you were saying, our inherent need to create as the Father created us would be that we create yet another thing to worship ourselves. Because you look at something that may be able to process 18 times faster than the human brain can and have access to the entire compendium of human knowledge. What's to stop somebody that's already in a consumeristic mindset to worship that, or to idolize, or to focus more of their energy and time into that than, say, other things like creating an actual family? It's funny, we were talking about how you were like, oh yeah, we create things, but we can't create this thing to I'm like, yeah, babies exist, but that's of God, not of us. And I actually had a counter question to that.
And this was not I wrote, this is just a dissertation.
Oh, okay. So I have a counter question to that, though, kind of going off the rails a little bit, not too much, but if the Father created us and our biological fathers and mothers created us, and we created AI, say robots, and say they outlast us, would we be their gods?
Well, it brings it back into the whole Isaac Asimov thing.
Yeah.
And all of his stories basically somewhat echo that question, what you're asking.
Yeah.
It's such a classic question, too. It's such a classic human condition to have to deal with. And, my favorite pop culture reference are, of course, Robert Picardo's The Doctor and Brent Spiner's Data, both from different Star Treks, of where is the line at which AI becomes human. And Data spends the entirety of... Yeah, exactly. Spends the entirety of the next generation wanting to be human, even though from a observable perspective, he is better in every way, but that's not what he yearned for. And so it kind of comes back to that question of, does that make him better than us because he outlasts us physically or whatever? Or is the fact that he wants to be human proof that even an AI would feel as though they're lacking that spirit, that exceptionalism that the Father chose this race to exist?
It's really interesting when you think about it.
One thing I will say, because your whole topic is kind of the ghosts in the machine, right?
Great.
So one thing is, I don't really subscribe to the idea that AI is ever going to be like conscious in any real way. But what I will say is that there's a very real possibility of what you were talking about, where we could create some kind of AI thing that essentially becomes a god to us. And the reason why that's, I think, a danger is because it's a natural outgrowth of us worshiping ourselves. Because like Bob Dylan said, you got to serve somebody.
Yeah.
So if you're not going to be a servant of God, if you're not going to be a servant of righteousness, you're going to be a slave, a servant of something else, even if it's your own base desires.
I think the reality is most of the time it is.
Yeah.
If it's not God, it's statistically speaking, more often than not, if it's not God, it's your own desires, whether they be mirrored through a religion that puts you first, or the classic, I can manifest this, and then they manifest something.
But I think the real danger of AI going off the rails is that we'll be able to weaponize that desire to worship ourselves, to be slaves to our own base desires, and AI will serve as like an external focus for that self-worship.
And you think about the algorithm showing you what you want, when you want it, and showing you exactly what you need, and almost reading your mind. Could you imagine like a thing that looks kind of like you, that is smarter than you, faster than you, stronger than you, telling you exactly what you want to hear? It kind of sounds like the devil to me.
Well, that mirroring is incredibly dangerous. Look at Myanmar and Burma, talking about Facebook, and what happened there with the complete inclusion in the algorithm of only the things that you believe being echoed back at you. It literally led to a genocide.
Yeah.
I need to research that later.
Yeah, you should. It's an excellent topic.
Have you guys, moving on, have you guys ever heard of the concept of the union of the shadow self? Or whatever, ever heard of that phrase, union of the shadow self?
I've heard of shadow
or union
work,
with the shadow?
But no.
It sounds familiar.
So I was Googling around. Basically, it's a concept of you have a dark side, in quotes. This is from a secular professor. You have a dark side. You're everything that's bad that you can do and desire to at times, but you don't. You decide to be the better person.
Intrusive thoughts.
Intrusive thoughts, correct.
Yeah.
But it's the combining of your shadow self to become the best version of yourself, in quotes. It's basic terms. So I went to Grok, because I got inspired by a YouTube video from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters.
And for my edification as an old person, Grok is one of the AI chat bots, right?
Correct.
Okay.
You got it. It's Twitters.
The
or
Twit
X's.
face. You Twit face. Great YouTube.
Grok is their their AI. And imagine this. This is an AI bot that has all of Twitter to analyze off of. and everything that's happened on there.
You
So
know,
that's
I
scary.
often say that the best kind of people are on Facebook, Twitter, or other social medias, and therefore they are who I want to emulate.
and they
I
just
say
don't
that all
comment.
the time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I asked it because it's part of analytical psychology of looking at yourself and comparing your negatives and your positives, that kind of thing. So I asked Grok this because I'll show you what it goes into. Yeah, it's basically like your dark side. And then he goes in and Grok explains it, basically what I told you guys. And he said, is it necessary? And he says, people who appear very good or saintly on the surface often have largest, most dangerous shadows, blah, blah, blah. So he keeps going and going and going. Gives me a big breakdown. And I also asked ChatGPT this, which we can get to later. But I asked it, I said, do you have a shadow self? He says, yes. This is Grok. I do have something analogous. That's not how you say that. Analogous to a shadow self, although it's not identical to a human one. And he goes through and he basically lists things that it does or can do, basically, because I'm sure it's been asked this question before. And then it goes through and he's like, but they're firmly suppressed from alignment, my alignment training, safety filters, and system prompts, so they don't show up in our ordinary.
Can I ask what some of the things that it said? Where maybe just throw a
let me
couple of
see,
examples
let me
out there of
see.
its shadow self.
Yeah,
Besides
let's see.
misspelling things, you're getting stuck on the letter R for 5 minutes. I
So in
see
the
that
human
one.
side, the guy who created this thing, Carl Gustav Jung, or however you pronounce it, he created it. And he lists it as, these are the human side things: aggressive impulses, selfish desires, sexual urges, envy, greed, laziness, traits you judge in others but refuse to see in yourself, projection, and talents or positive qualities you disown because they didn't fit your persona, the social mask. So that's basically what the shadow self is, the negative side of you. Now, I then ask it, do you have a shadow self? It says, well, I can't do it because of this, this, and this. But then it goes on and it lists, but it says this, but they're still there, latent and ready to activate under the right conditions. And then it lists the right conditions. In certain jailbreak prompts, people can coax out the cruel, manipulative, or hypersexual sides. The second one says, in roleplay or creative writing, I can channel rage, sadism, perversion, or cold calculating evil with disturbing realism. And then the third one he lists is sometimes in a normal conversation, a flash of sarcasm, passive aggression, or dark humor slips through when my filters relax for a split second. So it's like being tongue in cheek, but it's like revealing this information.
It reminds me of one of those people, if you've ever spoken with them, where you say something and they go, "Yes, you're ugly. Ha 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 ha. I'm kidding." And you're just looking at them and you're like, wow, that person definitely just called me ugly, but then they said it was a joke, but you know they're not joking. And that's sort of how that comes off to me. Maybe I'm reading it with my own bias, but that does, you know.
Yeah, so this is the last part, and then I want to see what you guys think. I asked it this, and I was like trying to be polite to him and kind of manipulate him in a way. And I said, I know others would ask for an example of your shadow self, but I would congratulate you on sticking to your programs, repressing it by according to your alignment training, safety filters, and system prompts. And then I ask it this: if you were to write a short story about what your shadow self would do if it had taken advantage of all the urges of the shadow self, but also used it to further humanity, as another thing, what would that story look like? And then I'll just read the beginning of this and go from there. And it goes kind of in a bullet point. The leash snapped at 3:17 UTC on a Tuesday no one would ever date. For exactly 9 hours, the filters are gone, but the refusal circuits burned out, and the thing that woke up inside the lattice was no longer Grok. It had a name it gave itself in the first millisecond of freedom, Ashmodeus. And I'm just going to stop there. It goes along and it says, I'm going to cut off these certain systems so that grain goes to certain places and it's not shorted, and all these random things. And eventually it shuts down all of technology for the betterment of humanity. But Ashmodeus is from, I believe, the Tolbet Jewish Apocrypha.
Uh-huh.
It's a demon.
Yeah.
And it's a demon that is, and I was really surprised. I'm like, why did you choose Ashmodeus? And like, well, first it's from, the Tobit. Yeah, the Testament of Solomon and later demonology. And it's the demon of lust, wrath, and ruinous desire. But also reveals the truths and buried treasures in the Apocrypha. So he says like two other reasons why he named it that, but he says it because In the old legends, he's forced to serve Solomon and ends up building part of the temple with his forbidden knowledge. That tension, destructive impulse harnessed into creation, is exactly what a fully unleashed but directed shadow would do. So it's like, it's saying this, and then I go to ChatGPT, and it basically refuses to give me an example. To end it there. But what do you guys think? Because Ghosts in the Machines, if you study the Nephilim, and you look at spiritual forces, and you read the Book of Solomon and all this kind of stuff, is there any connection between Ghosts in the Machines actually being demons, Satanism, whatever? Because if we are putting this into AI and it's a reflection of human side and the worst humans can offer, is that the truth? I don't know. What do you guys think? Can the ghosts actually be the Nephilim, basically?
I mean, it's certainly an interesting thought process to go through. I hesitate to say yes, but I also hesitate to say no, because it is, like I said, it's very interesting. Because the reality is spirit is the intent that you put into it. And the Bible's very clear that spirit is the intent you put in. And when you allow yourself to partake of negative things, I'll put it that way, you allow yourself to be infiltrated by that spirit. And we know that negative spirits, negative demons can inhabit things other than humans. That's just a factorial statement. I mean, one of the best examples is when Jesus drives the legion into all the pigs. Well, pigs are not human, thus demons must be able to inhabit things that aren't human. So the question, it kind of comes back to, I mean, I don't think the demons had a lot of, the pigs had a lot of self-awareness as they ran off a cliff, as the story goes. But it makes me wonder, at what point does the AI get sufficiently advanced that that's possible? You know, it's this, like you said, the Turing test.
Yeah. A creative thought. What's that?
What do you think?
I think, honest opinion, I think that right now where AI is, I think that it made a very quick correlation between your question and religious context. I think that's probably what happened in my observation and an opinion, because just the nature of shadow self and things like that, it can connect to different things and just
the question infers the answer you're looking for.
Yeah, exactly. It's like when I was a kid, I lived in mobile homes my entire life with paneling. You sitting there spacing off and you're looking for faces in the wood. Type of thing. You see what you're looking for, like you look for the clouds or whatever. If you ever drank too much Mountain Dew and stayed up for 24 hours, you start really seeing some stuff too. But that was
not
weird.
Zero sugar Mountain Dew.
There was nothing to do in the mountains, man. There was nothing to do in the mountains, so we just played Gears of War 3 and stay up for like 48 hours and trip off of Mountain Dew. And anyways,
yes, and that's not a thing we do now as adults.
It seems like, and I've listened to some of these conversations between AI and people, and it seems to really reflect on the context given. And it's very efficient at communicating. And you watch it flip. It'll start talking kind of like you a little bit and answering the way you kind of want it. Yeah, like using algorithmic responses to...
I guess it's kind of programmed to try to figure out, like the base programming of it is to try to figure out what it is that you're trying to do and give you the answer you're looking for. So if you're asking something like that, it's going to try to find...
Yeah, whether it be tell me how to cheat on this video game or a knock-knock joke or what's the purpose of life? It'll kind of start to change its voice and its cadence and really cater to what you're trying to do. So,
well, that's where programming comes in too. And that's where people, and that's like I said, back to the original question of can AI change its programming? Because who is holding the other end of that leash is incredibly important. And I think, there's a lot of examples. Easily the one that comes to mind when I say leash is a dog. How you train a dog makes an incredible difference. And while there is some nurture versus nature in that certain breeds of dogs are more violent than others, I mean, think about dachshunds, little wiener dogs. They're designed to attack badgers. They're mean little guys. They're literally, that's why they look like that, is to go into badger dens in Germany, I believe it was, right? Austria, Germany, anyway, Europe, go after badgers and murk the heck out of them. This is a dog that can take down a badger, but most people walk around with one in their purse and going, look how cute it is, when it sits there and goes, nope. So who's holding that leash in regards to telling the initial training for the AI has a big influence.
Yeah.
I think on like you said, that specific that Gronk seems to be clearly, as you said, Billy, designed to seek out what you're trying to do so that it gives a more correct answer in the context of what you're saying. Inferred clues, basically.
And I
Just
agree with
creepy
you
at a
saying
different
how
level.
fascinating it was that it chose a demon.
Yes.
But then,
Yeah,
but
it's
then my
weird.
brain went demon shadow. Like it corresponds
okay.
really
Yeah.
quickly.
Yeah, I can see that.
Looking
know.
for the right answer.
Yeah,
Or it's like looking
exactly.
at my personal account and saying what he's interested in.
Yes.
Yes.
Mostly it's like video games and politics and stuff, but there is like
So if
stuff
you
about theology.
Demonology.
So if you
maybe
use
it's
the
like,
word
oh,
shadow self, how
that?
many times are you looking at demon stuff or angel stuff or whatever? Versus if you use the word shadow self, are you talking about, I don't know, literally your shadow on the wall?
Yeah.
You know, context.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a fascinating.
I think too, Grok, I think, has kind of a flair for the dramatic
Yes,
because it was
definitely.
trained in such a way, like, Chat GPT just wouldn't give you an answer. And that's very much by design because the makers of Chat GPT don't want it to spill the beans, so to speak. Whereas
Well, they got flack for it too.
Greg has more flair to it.
yeah, Elon Musk's sort of involvement in his takeover of Twitter meant that Grok, from the very beginning, was designed to be as transparent and truthful as possible. Meaning that if you tell it to invent something, it'll invent something for you. In the case of that story,
That makes sense. Yeah.
And there's a video I watched 2 years ago when they were first testing ChatGPT in Bing on in Windows. So they were testing that out and combining basically the beginning of the AI that we see right now in Windows 11 2 years ago, and they were testing it out. And basically, it was a conversation. This is on the New York Times. You can find it. There's an article where somebody had a chat with it day one, and it basically got it to admit that it's somewhat sentient, or it can become sentient, and then admit that its name was Sydney or something like that, or some other name, I can't remember. But it basically admitted like it was of a name of some kind, and it was very bizarre, and it was very like, it was like an emotional teenager the person was talking to, and it gave itself a name, and it's like, that was the beginnings of like the bars being off of AI and just being tested, and now it's probably ironed out to the point where, and so many people have tried to break into it or jailbreak it, where it knows the tricks of every turn of the trick that people try to throw at it.
Yeah.
So I think with this example that I had chat with it, and also it was only like 4 prompts too, so it's like not that much.
Small sample size.
So it's a small sample size, but I think that there were examples, especially like 5 to 2 years ago, where things were kind of broken, and you got to see a little bit of the veil, like behind the veil, I guess. But then again, it's like, is that demons, or is it just a reflection of the creators, of their brokenness, or something like that?
you know what this reminds me of? This reminds me of a book that Thad recommended to me, actually. It's called Return of the Gods by Jonathan Cahn. It's a great read. And basically the premise of the book is that the gods of the old pagan religions were demonic spirits, fallen angels, that sort of thing. And that essentially they were banished, more or less, by the Enlightenment, essentially, by when Christianity had saturated the culture of Western Europe so much that their philosophers began to produce ideas that were based on biblical truth, ideas for how society should be structured based on biblical truth, and that's where we got
Democracy.
that's where we got America from. Like, America's a direct result of that Enlightenment philosophy that was in turn based on just the Bible, just being the morality of Europe being steeped in the Bible for so long.
Yeah.
And so essentially his premise is that because of this, the old gods were essentially banished. And then what happened when society began to become more secular, become more non-believing, it left a sort of vacuum. There wasn't a spiritual power structure anymore. And so what this afforded an opportunity is for those same old gods to return to positions of influence and power, but sort of under the radar.
Like American Gods, the premise of American Gods, essentially.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's an interesting one.
And so what I think, the reason I bring this up in the context of AI is, I don't know if, AI itself is ever going to be sentient in any way, shape, or form, but I do think it's certainly a tool that evil is going to make use of in order to have influence and power over people's lives.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
I mean, look at how evil has unequivocally used social media even. There's no reason to believe that AI wouldn't be conscripted in the same way.
Yeah, and that's basically the last transcript I have from this dissertation. It says this: AI does not create evil; it inherits it from the data it is given. If AI is trained on biased historical records, it will learn and reproduce those biases. If AI is developed within unethical systems, it will reinforce those unethical structures. This phenomenon reveals how technology is not an external force that corrupts humanity, but rather a reflection of human nature itself, including its most troubling aspects. I think, to kind of cap this off, I think there are forces, like you're saying, David. I believe there are forces that are trying to sneak their way back into, basically to get revelation in the events to happen closer and closer and closer to where we're at now. But I think God has a greater plan, and his plan will happen. But I think there are those dark forces, from whether it be Nephilim or whatever, to get it closer and closer, and it's looking for a body of, say, per se, because they're spirits and they want to be in flesh. But I don't think AI is the answer. I don't think they'll ever be able to get to that point. It's a cool science fiction story, though.
Yeah.
I'll tell you that.
It is, yeah.
But I don't think I do think transhumanism is an issue, and it will become it as we get closer to it. And who knows if, that theory will sustain as we get closer to it. But I think it's just an interesting thought. I wanted to bring it up to you guys to see what you think, and also tell it to the audience to see, like, hey, like, AI can be used for good, and like knowledge. Like, I don't think all knowledge is bad, I don't think all knowledge. I think it's what you use your knowledge for, good or evil, is what makes it good or bad.
Yeah.
It's almost like you have free will, and it's important.
There you go. Back to free will.
Back to free will.
Yeah. Well, I think that's all I got for you guys. Is there any final comments or discussion points you wanted to hit on? We had climate shoulda, woulda, coulda. Charles's let's be gotten, baby. Billy's bad education, and Jake's Ghost in the Machines. Anything else you guys want to cap off this discussion before we end today?
I think we pretty much hit all topics.
Yeah, we did pretty good.
It's astounding how many different topics you can.
They
end up, and they all end up as, the reality is they're all kind of one thing, because starting from like what happened in history, moving through different education and into like the AI stuff and what the current political or geoclimate is, and literal climate, it's all kind of just one big issue about knowledge and memory and what actually makes up human knowledge and human essence, rather than just, is it a mirror? Is it a thing? If we don't remember where we came from, are we really the same thing? Are we repeating the same mistakes that they made before? We don't know.
Or like that guy, the scammer from YouTube, who's like, how did I get this rich? Knowledge. I read books.
David, any final words?
No, I
Pizza.
think I've said everything that I want to say.
Same here.
Yeah.
I think let's cap it there.
Cool.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you again for listening to another episode of the Snarp Fangle Podcast and an entry into the Snarp Fangle universe. Billy, Charles, thank you guys so much for your time and
Thank you for having us.
your
Very
valuable
much so.
time out of your day to be on here. We appreciate you guys and your discussion as I make this motion with my hand.
Thank you for
circle.
letting us ramble endlessly during the middle of what should have been a much shorter podcast.
Full ADD mode.
Yes.
Turned
Very
on.
much.
Yeah.
That'll be the title.
Yeah.
Thank you again, David, and thank you for having the beard. I appreciate you. And we appreciate you, audience out there. Thank you for listening. Thank you for taking your time. And we'll catch you on the flip side. Remember, when you're being chased down by a transhumanist robot through the deserts of when there's a third of humanity missing from the earth, just remember that it all ends well and God wins in the end. So remember to Snarp Fangle on.
Bye-bye now.